Ning Qinghe sat down and ate a bowl of shredded pork noodles at the state-run restaurant. This state-run eatery looked much like the place where she had dined previously. Everyone kept their heads down over their meals. Occasional snippets of conversation triggered rewards for Ning Qinghe. For having dinner at the state-run restaurant, Ning Qinghe received 10 servings of braised pork, 20 bowls of plain noodles, 10 servings of braised fish, sweet and sour Chinese cabbage, 10 jin of steamed white rice, 10 servings of seasonal stir-fried vegetables, 100 meat buns, and 100 boiled dumplings. After finishing her dinner, Ning Qinghe walked out of the state-run restaurant. The sky had not yet fully darkened, and there were only a few pedestrians on the town streets. Ordinary folks in this era led simple, monotonous, routine lives. Once factory workers finished their shifts, they mostly headed straight home to cook, wash clothes, tidy up the house, or look after their children. They had no extra pastimes to enjoy. The only spot in town that counted as entertainment was the state-run cinema along the street. Ning Qinghe wandered slowly down the road and paused for a while in front of the cinema. Old posters covered the outer walls, and several long wooden benches stood by the entrance. Stray passers-by occasionally bought tickets to watch a film. There were very few types of films available for screening back then. The same limited selection played on a loop. Mostly war films from the Revolutionary period, model operas, red-themed documentaries, plus a handful of old imported foreign films. With repetitive themes and rigid plots, Ning Qinghe felt no interest at all after glancing at them. She turned and left after a quick look. There was still some time before the trade she had arranged with Brother Dao. Ning Qinghe avoided the crowds and found a quiet alley with no one nearby. She quickly adjusted her posture and clothing to disguise herself once more. In a short while, the neat, youthful girl transformed into the thin, sallow, plain-looking young man again. Once her disguise was complete and she confirmed no one could recognize her, she headed alone toward the small woodlands outside town as dusk fell. When she reached the meeting spot, the surroundings were pitch black and silent, without a single person in sight. Ning Qinghe checked that the area was safe, then focused her mind. She took out all the supplies prepared for the trade in batches from her system storage space. Altogether, there were 100 jin of fresh pork, 1,000 jin of polished rice, 1,000 jin each of various coarse grains, several complete bolts of cloth, and 4 brand-new vintage 28-inch men's bicycles. All these goods were previous rewards from the system. She could never use so much on her own. It would be a waste to leave them sitting idle in the storage space, so she planned to sell them to earn cash and grain coupons. She neatly stacked all the supplies on the clearing in the woodland, sorting them into separate piles. Ning Qinghe altered the surrounding ground slightly to create marks suggesting frequent transport and foot traffic. This made the bulk delivery look more authentic, avoiding anything that seemed unnatural. Once that was done, she stood quietly waiting. Night fell completely. The wind rustled through the trees, and the woodland grew eerily quiet. Before long, steady footsteps echoed in the distance. Brother Dao arrived at the woodland clearing right on schedule, accompanied by several trusted subordinates. The men strode into the open space and immediately spotted Ning Qinghe standing alone, alongside the towering piles of goods. A flicker of admiration crossed Brother Dao's eyes. Few people dared to attend such a large-scale black market transaction alone. Yet this seemingly frail, unremarkable young man had come by himself. His courage and poise surpassed most people. Brother Dao wasted no words and gestured to his men. "Inspect the goods." The subordinates stepped forward and divided the work efficiently. Some weighed the grain, others checked whether the pork was fresh, a few counted the cloth bolts, and the rest carefully examined the condition of the 2 bicycles. After thorough checking and verification, one subordinate walked over to Brother Dao and whispered his report. "Brother Dao, everything checks out." Brother Dao nodded. His gaze swept over the mountain of supplies, and he sighed inwardly. This young man looked gaunt and ordinary on the surface, yet his capabilities ran deep. It was extraordinary enough to source large quantities of grain, oil, and meat. On top of that, he could produce brand-new bicycles, an extremely scarce commodity that ordinary people could never get their hands on. At this moment, Brother Dao's opinion of Ning Qinghe rose even higher. He fully regarded her as a major long-term client. He quickly calculated the total price in his head. Based on the unit prices agreed upon earlier, the entire batch of goods was worth 25,000 yuan. 25,000 yuan was an astronomical sum in this era. Brother Dao did not have enough cash on hand to cover the full amount. He fell silent for a few seconds, then looked toward Ning Qinghe and spoke sincerely. Young comrade, this shipment totals 25,000 yuan. I only have 15,000 yuan in cash right now. I still owe you 10,000. Tell me how you would like to settle the balance. Name your terms. Ning Qinghe pondered rapidly. She knew antiques and vintage artifacts would be extremely valuable in the modern era. Gold bars were another option. This was the perfect chance to settle the outstanding payment and stock up on vintage collectibles. Ning Qinghe lifted her eyes to meet Brother Dao's gaze, her tone calm. You don't need to give me cash for the remaining 10,000 yuan. Settle the debt entirely with vintage artifacts or gold bars. Brother Dao breathed a huge sigh of relief, a clear look of joy spreading across his face. He might lack ready cash, but as someone deeply involved in the black market, he had accumulated a great many old items that others dismissed, alongside several gold bars. Settling 10,000 yuan of debt with idle antiques was an incredible bargain for him. Brother Dao promptly signaled one of his subordinates. The man hurried over and carried a tightly sealed solid wooden crate from a handcart parked on the roadside. He set it down before Ning Qinghe and lifted the lid. The crate was stuffed full of all kinds of vintage porcelain, old silver ornaments, carved wooden decorations, bronze wares, and antique jade pieces of every description. Ning Qinghe leaned down and examined them carefully. Every piece was genuine vintage ware with no damage or counterfeits. Satisfied, she nodded directly. Very well. I will take these. Our accounts are settled. Brother Dao felt completely at ease and said solemnly to Ning Qinghe, Young comrade, if you acquire more goods like this in the future, please come to me first. I guarantee fair prices. Ning Qinghe replied faintly. Rest assured, Brother Dao. I will contact you again when I have new stock. Brother Dao ordered his men to load all the supplies onto their carts and transport them away from the woodland that night. The empty woods fell silent once more. After confirming no one lingered nearby, Ning Qinghe quickly left the woodland. She did not head straight home. Instead, she twisted through winding alleys, took out a bicycle, and rode far around the outskirts of town. After looping a long route, she entered another deserted lane. Once certain she was not being followed, she changed her outfit again, reverting to the Ning Qinghe everyone knew. Only then did she stroll leisurely toward the machinery factory family compound. The men sent to tail her had long since gotten lost amid her twists and turns. When his subordinate reported that they had lost track of the target, Brother Dao was not surprised. Someone as capable as Ning Qinghe would never travel without precautions. Moreover, Ning Qinghe consistently supplied high-quality goods. Establishing long-term cooperation would be ideal. He had ordered his men to follow her merely to learn her identity, making future transactions easier. If they lost her trail, so be it. What Brother Dao did not know was that soon after shaking off her followers, Ning Qinghe would leave for the countryside. Shortly after Ning Qinghe arrived home, the system's voice sounded once again. Congratulations to the host on earning over 10,000 yuan. The system has obtained one upgrade opportunity. The upgrade will take 24 hours. No further system rewards will trigger during the upgrade, though storage functions will remain operational. Before Ning Qinghe could respond, the system fell silent. System? System? Ning Qinghe called out several times, yet received no reply. There was nothing she could do. So be it, let the system upgrade. As usual, Ning Qinghe took bedding out of the storage space and spread it on the floor to sleep. Before resting, she remembered Su Yan had invited her over for dinner the next day. Thinking about her upcoming visit to someone's home, Ning Qinghe mentally browsed the storage space. It was packed with supplies of every kind: clothing, daily necessities, rice, flour, grain, and oil. It was a pity she could not enter the space herself. That would have been far more convenient. From the storage space, she selected a box of peach crisp pastries, a bottle of Yanghe Daka liquor, and a bolt of sapphire blue cloth as gifts for her visit. Gifts of this standard were quite respectable, no matter where she brought them in this era. Having prepared everything, Ning Qinghe settled down to sleep. She slept straight through until noon. She would have stayed in bed longer if her stomach had not begun to rumble with hunger. She retrieved toiletries from the storage space and freshened up. Then she pulled out a blue dress and put it on. She braided her hair into a side plait falling over one shoulder, looking pure and vibrant. In truth, the original owner shared the same appearance as Ning Qinghe. Perhaps the Ning Qinghe living in the 1970s was her past self. Ning Qinghe skipped eating at the state-run restaurant that day. Instead, she took 2 meat buns out of the storage space for lunch. To her surprise, the storage space had time-freezing properties. The meat buns were still steaming hot when she took them out. After finishing the buns and resting for a while, she saw it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Judging the time to be right, she headed out. Su-Yan's home was in the textile mill family compound, a fair distance from the machinery factory compound. Ning Qinghe left the compound and boarded a bus bound for the textile mill, following the original owner's memories. The 40-minute bus ride brought her to the textile mill residential area. She ducked into an empty alley and took out the gifts she had prepared the previous night, carrying them in a net bag. Ning Qinghe walked into the compound and saw several elder aunties chatting near the gate. She stepped forward and asked, "Aunties, do you know where Su-Yan lives?" One woman in her 50s or 60s replied, "Young girl, you're looking for Su-Yan?" "Yes. Her house is the 3rd courtyard on the left row. You can spot it by the sweet osmanthus tree at the gate." Having gotten the information she needed, Ning Qinghe thanked the woman. "Thank you, auntie." Ning Qinghe walked toward the courtyard she had been directed to. As soon as she left, the women began to gossip. "That young girl is so beautiful, such a lovely face." "Indeed. She dresses nicely, so her family must be well off." "Did anyone see the bottle of Yanghe Daku she's carrying?" "I didn't notice, but I've heard that liquor is terribly expensive, costing more than 10 yuan a bottle." Ning Qinghe could not hear their conversation. She had already reached the courtyard gate. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. A clear female voice came from inside almost immediately. Ning Qinghe recognized it as Su-Yan. When Su-Yan opened the door and saw Ning Qinghe standing there, she broke into a bright smile. She stepped forward, looping her arm affectionately through Ning Qinghe's. "Qinghe, I was worried you wouldn't come. I promised I would." Su-Yan led Ning Qinghe into the courtyard, and Ning Qinghe took in her surroundings. She had noticed on the way over that the left side of the compound consisted mostly of separate small courtyards, while the right side held apartment blocks. Evidently, families living in these single courtyards were among the better-off employees of the textile mill. Su-Yan's home was a modest bungalow courtyard. It was not large, yet it was considered quite desirable in a time when housing was scarce. Many families of 8 or 9 people squeezed into 40 to 50 square meters of shared apartment buildings. One side of Su-Yan's courtyard was planted with vegetables, and the other with flowers and plants. The whole yard was immaculately kept. It was clear the homeowner was a tidy person. Hearing the commotion at the gate, a middle-aged woman in her early 40s stepped out of the main house. She wore neat short hair and carried a sharp, capable air. "Yan, this must be the Qinghe you spoke of." The woman looked at Su-Yan and Ning Qinghe with a smile. Her tone suggested she already knew the answer, even as she asked the question. "Qinghe, this is my mother, Aunt Zhang." Su-Yan introduced her mother to Ning Qinghe. "Mom, this is the girl who saved me yesterday. Her name is Ning Qinghe." "Hello, Aunt Zhang." "Hello, dear girl." Su-Yan's mother was Zhang Xia, a doctor at Haisher City Hospital. Su-Yan's father, Su Jigang, served as director of the textile mill. When Su-Yan came home the previous day and told her family how she had nearly been abducted by human traffickers, the couple had been terrified. They were endlessly grateful to learn a girl younger than their own daughter had rescued her. They had planned to express their thanks properly until Su-Yan told them she had invited Ning Qinghe over for dinner today. Now that she had met Ning Qinghe, Zhang Xia truly took a liking to the young girl. Ning Qinghe had delicate, pretty features, clear eyes, and poised, graceful manners. Zhang Xia had warmed to her at first sight. She invited the 2 girls inside the house. Yan, keep Qinghe company. I have 2 more dishes to finish cooking, then we can eat." Zhang Xia turned to head into the kitchen, but Ning Qinghe quickly called out to her. "Auntie, it's my first time visiting. I wasn't sure what you and uncle liked, so I brought a few small gifts." Zhang Xia glanced at the net bag in Ning Qinghe's hand. The bottle of Yanghe Daku stood out prominently. She never expected such an expensive gift from a young girl paying her first visit. Su-Yan's father had received 1 bottle the previous year, which he treasured, bringing it out only for festivals or important guests to take a small sip. Zhang Xia tried to decline. "You're far too thoughtful, child. You needn't bring gifts just to visit. This is too valuable, we can't accept it. Auntie, it's just my heartfelt gesture. If you refuse, I won't dare stay for dinner." They exchanged polite refusals back and forth, until Zhang Xia finally accepted the gifts. Her fondness for Ning Qinghe deepened, thinking her such a sensible young lady. Su Yan brought Ning Qinghe to her bedroom, and the two chatted for a while. When the time came, they stepped outside and ran into Su Jigang returning home from work. The moment Su Jigang saw Ning Qinghe, he thought the young girl possessed extraordinary bearing and bright, clear eyes. Su Yan introduced her. "Dad, this is Ning Qinghe I told you about." Ning Qinghe greeted him politely. "Hello, Uncle Su." "Hello." Su Jigang nodded. As soon as they sat down, Zhang Xia finished cooking and called everyone to the table for dinner. At the dinner table, Zhang Xia picked up some food and placed it on Ning Qinghe's plate. "Qinghe, I have to thank you. If not for you, our Yan might have been taken away by human traffickers." Ning Qinghe looked up at Zhang Xia, her gaze clear. "Auntie, anyone who witnessed what happened would not stand by and do nothing." "What a good girl." Zhang Xia added more food to Ning Qinghe's plate, growing fonder of her by the minute. Su Jigang watched Ning Qinghe with great approval. She had clear eyes and conducted herself with propriety in every word and gesture. "Qinghe, are your family members workers at the machinery factory?" "Yes. My father and stepmother are both factory employees." Ning Qinghe held nothing back and told them about Ning Jiangwo, Sun Hongmei, and the rest of the family. "That's terrible. Sun Hongmei is truly cruel." Su Yan exclaimed angrily after hearing her story. Zhang Xia and Su Jigang also looked at Ning Qinghe with sympathy. "Qinghe, dear girl, you can treat this home as your own from now on. Come over often, and I'll cook nice meals for you," Zhang Xia said gently to Ning Qinghe. At first, she had only felt gratitude toward Ning Qinghe for saving her daughter. After meeting her, she grew fond of her. Now, her heart ached sincerely for the girl. She had lost her mother young and endured bullying at the hands of her stepmother, stepbrother, and stepsister. They coveted her job and survivor's pension. Life must have been incredibly difficult for her. Seeing how well Ning Qinghe had turned out and how calmly she spoke of all these hardships, Zhang Xia felt both sorrow and relief. She genuinely wanted to care for the young girl. Su Jigang was shocked to hear Ning Qinghe's difficult family background. Su Yan's attention immediately settled on the matter of Ning Qinghe going to the countryside. "Qinghe, did your stepmother sign you up to be sent down to the countryside?" "Yes." Ning Qinghe nodded calmly when speaking of the assignment. "Where will you be sent?" "Huihua Commune, Xianjin Production Brigade in Heilongjiang Province." Su Yan's eyes widened in surprise when she heard the answer. "Qinghe, we're going to the same place." Now it was Ning Qinghe's turn to be stunned. She never imagined Su Yan would also be going to the countryside. "You're being sent down too?" "Yes." Su Yan nodded. Zhang Xia explained. "Yan's father and I have 3 children. Our eldest son serves as a company commander in the military in southwest China. Our second son works as a surgeon at Haishur City Hospital. Only Yan graduated this year without a job. Originally, Yan's father, as textile mill director, planned to get her a position at the factory. But someone filed a report claiming we held capitalist thinking and failed to respond to national policy. As the factory director, people accused him of not sending any of his children to participate in the up to the mountains and down to the countryside movement. Our eldest 2 children already had stable careers, so we had no choice but to let Yan go to the countryside. Qinghe, what wonderful luck we have to be assigned to the same place." "Yes, truly." Ning Qinghe was also delighted. She had no relatives or friends in this new world, and Su Yan was her first friend here. Yan is the youngest in our family and has been spoiled by all of us. We've been so worried about how she'll survive alone in the countryside. Now that you two will be together, I can rest easier." Zhang Xia never expected the 2 girls would end up in the same village. She knew her daughter was simple-minded, and having Qinghe beside her meant they could look out for each other. The conversation turned to supplies for the countryside, and Zhang Xia asked if Ning Qinghe had finished preparing her belongings. Ning Qinghe replied that she was mostly ready, easing Zhang Xia's worries. The family continued chatting until dusk fell. Ning Qinghe stood up to head home. Before she left, Zhang Xia handed her a gift she had prepared early that morning. Ning Qinghe did not decline it. She arranged to meet Su Yan at the train station on the day they departed for the countryside. When she got back home, Ning Qinghe opened the gift from Zhang Xia. Inside were 100 yuan, 2 cans of preserved fruit, a bag of white rabbit creamy candy, and 2 jin of egg cakes. This was an extremely generous gift for the era. That night, Ning Qinghe was asleep when the system's voice suddenly echoed. "Host, I'm back." Ning Qinghe was jolted awake from a deep sleep by the system's sudden call. System, you'd better have a good reason for waking me, or I won't let you off easily. The system felt a little sheepish. It had just finished its upgrade and was still a bit overexcited, having lost track of time. To distract Ning Qinghe, it spoke up. Host, I've completed my upgrade. I've got good news and bad news. Which would you like to hear first? Ning Qinghe was wide awake now. She listened to the system's words, her face devoid of any expression. Cut the act. You went for an upgrade. What exactly did you get out of it? The system had not expected Ning Qinghe to refuse to play along, so it could only tell the truth. I'm now a level 2 system. That means the rewards you receive from now on will be more abundant and higher grade. But there's a catch. Ning Qinghe instantly saw what the system was about to say. Well, after upgrading, I found out that this small world you're living in is actually the setting of a novel called Sweet Wife in the 70s. Ning Qinghe's eyes lit up, and she sat straight up. She had transmigrated into a book. Recalling the novels she had read before, she asked, am I the vicious supporting female character, or a canon, fodder extra? The kind who tries to snatch the female lead's opportunities and ends up winning everything. The system was utterly speechless at Ning Qinghe's train of thought. She really had quite the imagination. Host, you are neither the female lead, nor the vicious supporting actress, nor cannon fodder. You are merely a nameless passerby who exists solely to set the scene for the male supporting character's debut. What? A passerby? I don't even get a name. That's right. In the novel, you fall into the water right after your appearance and are rescued by Xia Li, the male supporting character. After that, you are never mentioned again in the story. Ning Qinghe twitched her lips upon hearing this. She had not even managed to land the role of a minor villainess. Her enthusiasm faded, and she lay back lazily, questioning the system. Who are the male and female leads of this novel? Actually, you've already met them, host. Ning Qinghe perked up. When? That day at the state-run restaurant. The girl you accidentally bumped into, the one who shouted at you, she is the female lead, Jiang Runin. The young man holding her back is the male lead, Gu Yan. What? That rude, spiteful girl is the female lead? This novel must have a warped storyline. In the novel, Jiang Runin and Gu Yan grew up together in the military compound as childhood sweethearts. Gu Yan has loved Jiang Runin since he was little. However, Jiang Runin's family was reported, and they were soon to be sent down to the countryside. To protect her, Jiang Runin's family used their last connections to arrange for her to go to the countryside as an educated youth. Gu Yan loved her deeply, and against his family's wishes, he followed her to the countryside. On the train bound for the countryside, Jiang Runin fell in love at first sight with the male supporting character Xia Li and began to pursue him relentlessly. Xia Li was actually a soldier hiding his identity as a sent-down-educated youth to carry out a mission. He was thoroughly annoyed by Jiang Runin's pestering. In her attempts to win Xia Li over, Jiang Runin did countless detestable things. She eventually broke Gu Yan's heart completely. He stopped loving her and grew fond of Su Yan, who had always cared for and stayed by his side. The Su Yan you mentioned, could it be the Su Yan I met yesterday? Ning Qinghe asked upon hearing the name. Yes, the very same Su Yan you know. Ning Qinghe fell silent. She had unintentionally crossed paths with the novel's male lead, female lead, male supporting character and female supporting character all at once. Continue, Ning Qinghe gestured for the system to go on. After Gu Yan and Su Yan got together, Jiang Runin plotted to drug Xia Li. Instead, Xia Li turned the tables on her. Jiang Runin ended up in bed with a local layabout and was caught red-handed by the villagers. She was forced to marry him, suffered domestic abuse, and died in childbirth. After her death, Jiang Runin was reborn to the year she first went to the countryside as an educated youth. She resolved to stop chasing Xia Li and cherish Gu Yan instead. In the end, she won Gu Yan back. The two lived happily, built successful businesses, and became famous entrepreneurs nationwide. What a ridiculously melodramatic plot. A thought suddenly crossed Ning Qinghe's mind. She narrowed her eyes and said, "You aren't going to force me to follow the plot or complete missions, are you?" The system sensed a faint hint of menace and quickly replied, "Of course not. We are a formal system. You don't need to follow the novel's storyline, nor do you have to complete any missions." Ning Qinghe breathed a sigh of relief, glad there were no mandatory tasks. "I'm the wealth-boosting system. After my upgrade, my functions are far more powerful. If anyone mentions supplies within a 5-meter radius of you, you can obtain double the quantity of those supplies. I suppose you're still somewhat useful. The system felt slightly aggrieved, sensing it was being looked down on. Once your stockpiles or income reach a certain threshold, you can trigger another system upgrade. I get it. Did you bring any rewards for this upgrade? I did. Why didn't you say so sooner? The system felt wronged. This host was hard to please. For this upgrade, you receive 360 mobile cinema viewing tickets, 1 universal coupon exchange window, 1 body restoration pill, 3 nutritional bust care drinks, 1 bottle of height, growing calcium tablets, 1,000 yuan, 30 random gift acquisition cards, 2 sets of all-purpose cosmetics. Ning Qinghe scanned the list of rewards. She had not expected the upgrade benefits to be so generous. She secretly resolved to earn money relentlessly to upgrade her spatial storage. She looked at the mobile cinema viewing tickets. The description stated that using a ticket would allow her to watch any random movie freely within her mind. The universal coupon exchange window allowed her to exchange money for various ration coupons. The restoration pill could heal chronic ailments and bodily exhaustion, returning the body to its peak condition. The nutritional bust care drinks could stimulate gentle physical development. 1 bottle of height, growing calcium tablets could increase height by 10 centimeters. A random gift acquisition card would grant 1 random item native to this world upon use. All-purpose cosmetics allowed subtle adjustments to one's facial features. After reading all the descriptions, Ning Qinghe stored the money in her space. She took out the restoration pill and swallowed it. Instantly, a warm sensation spread through her body. She felt unbelievably light, comfortable, and brimming with vitality. Beyond that, her skin visibly grew finer and fairer, and her dry, yellow hair turned glossy and black. Ning Qinghe glanced at her figure, stunted from years of insufficient food. Without hesitation, she took out the nutritional drinks and drank 2 bottles in a row. Though she noticed no immediate change. She swallowed 1 calcium tablet and then went back to sleep. The next morning, Ning Qinghe woke feeling refreshed. She admired her fair skin, thoroughly pleased. What young woman did not love looking her best? When her gaze fell to her figure, her eyes widened. Her silhouette had softened and filled out noticeably. Ning Qinghe grew even more satisfied with the system rewards. The drinks worked surprisingly well. She took another calcium tablet. Standing at roughly 156 centimeters now, gaining 10 centimeters would bring her to 166 centimeters. Ning Qinghe pulled a small mirror out of her space and stared at the bright-eyed girl reflected back. Her skin was smooth and delicate, as if dripping with freshness. She was in excellent spirits. She retrieved a bowl of noodles and a portion of braised pork from her space for breakfast. Today she would collect her father Ning Jiangwo's pension. The day after tomorrow, she would transfer her factory job to Zhawenyuan and head to the countryside. After eating, Ning Qinghe changed into one of the original owner's old clothes. She used the all-purpose cosmetics to tint her skin back to its former sallow tone. When collecting the pension, she needed to appear as a poor orphan to win people's sympathy. Once ready, she headed out. She walked alone to the factory director's office. She had come to collect the pension granted after her father's work-related passing. She knocked gently on the door. The director's voice came from inside. "Come in." Ning Qinghe pushed the door open and stepped inside. When the director saw her, he smiled gently and told her to sit down. "Director, I've come to collect my father's pension." Without hesitation, the director picked up a pen and paper, filled out the approval slip, stamped and signed it, then handed it to Ning Qinghe. "Take this slip to the finance office to settle and collect your money." Ning Qinghe took the slip and tucked it safely away. She did not leave right away. Standing where she was, she spoke to the director. "Director, I have something else to tell you." The director looked up at her. "Speak." Ning Qinghe spoke calmly, laying out the situation. "The factory job quota reserved for me, I plan to transfer it to Aunt Lu and Uncle Zhao's daughter, Zhao Wenyuan. My stepmother's son Hongmei registered my name for the Educated Youth program. I've already checked with the Educated Youth office. The list cannot be amended. I have no choice but to forfeit the factory position and go to the countryside as arranged soon." The director frowned deeply upon hearing this. His heart ached for Ning Qinghe. He knew the girl had suffered a cruel fate. Her father had only just passed away, and her selfish, unkind stepmother schemed against her at every turn. That stable lifelong factory job would have been her greatest security for the rest of her life. Yet it had been snatched away behind her back, forcing her off to endure hardship in the countryside. The director pitied her, yet there was nothing he could do. Once educated youth rosters were submitted and filed, they were governed by strict policy. Not even a factory director could reverse the decision. The matter was settled. There was no turning back. The director sighed, looking at the calm, sensible young girl before him, and spoke earnestly. "Child, what's done is done, and words won't change things. Life in the countryside is tough, with harsh conditions. Once you arrive, you must take good care of yourself and never let yourself suffer unjustly. If you face unfair treatment or encounter troubles you cannot resolve, write to the factory anytime. As long as I hold this position, I will help you wherever I can." Ning Qinghe nodded and replied, "Thank you, Director." With that, she took the pension slip and turned to leave the office. With the approved slip in hand, Ning Qinghe headed straight for the factory finance office. The staff verified the slip and cross-checked against the factory's pension records. Once confirmed, they handed Ning Qinghe the full pension payment. In total, 1,500 yuan in cash. In this era, this was an enormous sum. Ning Qinghe counted the money on the spot, stowed it carefully close to her body, and left the finance office calmly. Early the next morning, Ning Qinghe met Lu Guifan and Zhao Wenyuan at the factory gate as planned. Once they gathered, the three walked into the personnel department together. Ning Qinghe explained the situation to the personnel chief. The director had notified the department about her case the previous day, so the paperwork to transfer the job quota from Ning Qinghe to Zhao Wenyuan was processed quickly. When everything was finalized, Lu Guifan and Zhao Wenyuan breathed a sigh of relief. They had feared complications these past few days. Stepping out of the office, the tension that had weighed on Lu Guifan melted away. She turned to Ning Qinghe, eyes glistening with gratitude, and grasped her hand. "Qinghe, I don't know how to thank you. This job is an iron rice bowl, something countless people scramble to get. You could have kept it for yourself, yet you gave it to my Wenyuan. My daughter and I will owe you this great kindness for the rest of our lives." Zhao Wenyuan beside her was equally emotional. She had long dreamed of securing formal employment so she would not be sent to the countryside. She never imagined she would land an office clerk's position thanks to Ning Qinghe. Zhao Wenyuan looked at Ning Qinghe and spoke sincerely. "Qinghe, thank you. I know you are being forced to go to the countryside against your will. Giving me this job means you've given me a way out. No matter what happens in the future, if you ever need my help, I, Zhao Wenyuan, will come at once." Ning Qinghe kept her tone steady as she replied. "There's no need for that. I could not hold on to the quota anyway. It would have gone to waste. Rather than letting it vanish, it's better to pass it to you. As long as you work hard and do not squander this opportunity, that will be enough." Lu Guifan nodded repeatedly. "We will work hard for sure. Wenyuan will come to work diligently, obey the rules, and never slack off. We will live up to your kindness." The mother and daughter thanked Ning Qinghe repeatedly. After parting with them, Ning Qinghe reapplied her makeup to look like the thin, sallow young man she had disguised as before. She went straight to the black market to find Dao Ge. She wanted to earn another large sum before leaving for Heilongjiang province. When Dao Ji's subordinate reported Ning Qinghe's arrival, he happily ordered them to bring her in. "Young brother, you've finally come." Dao Ji's face creased into a wide grin when he saw Ning Qinghe, as if laying eyes on a walking fortune. Faced with his excessive enthusiasm, Ning Qinghe shifted uncomfortably and cleared her throat before speaking. "Dao Ge, I have a batch of goods to sell. I wonder if you can take all of them." Ning Qinghe's previous stock had earned Dao Ge a great deal of profit, so he anticipated valuable goods this time. "Oh? What goods have you brought this time?" 2,000 jin of wheat flour, 1,000 jin of rice, 10 radios, 10 electric fans, 50 cartons of de Qianmen cigarettes, 50 bottles of sorghum liquor, and 5 bicycles. Ning Qinghe spoke plainly, but Dao Ge was stunned by the list of highly sought-after goods. He stood up excitedly and paced back and forth, calculating whether he had enough cash. He suddenly recalled Ning Qinghe's fondness for antiques and ventured a question. "Young brother, I very much want all these goods, but I don't have enough cash on hand. Could I trade with antiques and gold bars instead?" He stared nervously at Ning Qinghe, terrified she would refuse and the deal would fall through. Ning Qinghe picked up the teacup on the table and sipped calmly before answering. "That can be arranged. But I want half cash, half antiques, and gold bars." Dao Ge ran the numbers and agreed. They arranged to complete the transaction in the wooded grove once more. With experience from their last trade, everything proceeded smoothly. Dao Ge handed Ning Qinghe 20,000 yuan, 2 crates of antiques, and 1 crate of small gold bars. Young brother, remember to seek me out if you have more quality goods later. Ning Qinghe did not reply, only gave a slight nod. Once Dao Go and his men left, she circled most of the city on her bicycle, just as she had done before returning home. Ding! Congratulations to the host for accumulating income exceeding 30,000. Title: Wealth, Beginner Novice awarded. System rewards: 1,000 yuan, 5,000 gene rice, 5,000 gene wheat flour, 1,000 gene soybeans, 1,000 gene coarse grains, 30 gift descent cards, 3 skill learning cards. Ning Qinghe remained calm upon hearing the reward announcement. She looked at the newly obtained skill learning card and activated it. Primary College Entrance Examination Knowledge Skill. The card flashed white light and rushed straight into Ning Qinghe's mind. In an instant, Ning Qinghe felt transported to another space. She sat inside a classroom, and a teacher stood before the blackboard holding chalk. I am your Chinese teacher, Teacher Liu. We will start learning senior high school Chinese knowledge now. Teacher Liu began lecturing. Ning Qinghe discovered she could interrupt him at any time and ask any questions related to Chinese studies. However, the teacher would not respond to topics unrelated to academics. She could pause the lecture and raise questions freely during class. Once she understood how it worked, Ning Qinghe smiled. With this skill, passing the college entrance examination would be no trouble at all. System, you truly are a miraculous system. Proud of the compliment, the system completely forgot how Ning Qinghe had disparaged it earlier. Of course. I told you, after my upgrade, the rewards I offer are far more powerful and abundant. Ning Qinghe looked at her remaining 2 skill cards, 1 primary culinary skill learning card and 1 primary basic medical skill learning card. Her heart raced. The college entrance examination would not resume for several years. She planned to settle quietly in the countryside to hone her skills, then sit the exam once it reopened. Having made up her mind, she activated the primary basic medical skill learning card. Her instructor was an elderly Chinese medicine practitioner, Old Wu, around 70 years old, who taught her foundational knowledge of medicinal herbs. As for the culinary skill card, her teacher was a stout chef in his 40s, Master Zhou. The first dish Master Zhou taught her to cook was his signature braised pork. That night, Ning Qinghe immersed herself in learning, thoroughly enjoying every minute. She exited the learning space early the next morning. She had studied all night without rest, yet she felt utterly refreshed, not the slightest bit tired. She retrieved a plate of dumplings from her space for breakfast. After eating, she packed her luggage, 1 crossbody bag and a small suitcase, then headed out. Before leaving, she went to bid Lu Guifan farewell and asked her to inform the factory to reclaim her housing. After wrapping everything up, Ning Qinghe picked up her luggage and set off for the train station. As soon as she arrived, she spotted Su Yan waiting there, alongside Zhang Xia and her husband. Beside them stood a young man in his early 20s, who bore a resemblance to Zhang Xia, possessing a gentle, scholarly aura. Su Yan had been chatting with Zhang Xia, but turned her head and caught sight of Ning Qinghe carrying luggage. She immediately broke into a smile and waved. Qinghe, over here. Ning Qinghe walked toward Su Yan. When she reached them, she greeted Zhang Xia and Su Jigang. Aunt Zhang, Uncle Su. Zhang Xia's smile never faded. She genuinely liked Ning Qinghe. She thought that after only a few days apart, Ning Qinghe looked even prettier, her skin fair and soft, as if water could be squeezed from it. She glanced at Ning Qinghe's single crossbody bag and small suitcase and asked with concern, Qinghe, is this all your luggage? Ning Qinghe understood her misunderstanding and smiled gently. And I mailed the rest of my belongings ahead of time. It makes traveling easier. Relief washed over Zhang Xia after hearing this. Su Yan grabbed Ning Qinghe's arm excitedly and introduced her brother. Qinghe, this is my second brother, Su Wanzhou. Ning Qinghe looked at Su Wanzhou, her gaze clear. She had only caught a distant glimpse of the man beside Su Yan earlier, but now that she saw him up close, she could tell Su Wanzhou stood around 180 centimeters tall. A few stray locks of hair fell over his forehead. His features were not the square-jawed look popular among men at the time. His face shape resembled Zhang Xia's, carrying a gentle softness. Su Yan had only inherited half of Zhang Xia's looks, yet Su Wanzhou had taken after her by 70 to 80%, what people commonly described as an androgynous male beauty. Hello, second brother Su. Ning Qinghe greeted him. Meanwhile, Su Wanzhou's eyes had not left her ever since she walked over through the crowd. Ning Qinghe was the most stunning woman he had laid eyes on in all his years. Her skin was fair, her features delicate, and her big, limpid eyes seemed capable of speaking. He stared, utterly transfixed, so much so that he failed to respond when Ning Qinghe spoke to him. Second brother, hey, second brother. Seeing her elder brother in a daze, Su Yan nudged Su Wano with her elbow. He snapped out of his trance, embarrassed to realize he had been staring blankly at a young woman. He hastily replied, "Hello." The tips of his ears were flushed crimson. Ning Qinghe did not notice, for Zhang Xia and Su Jigua were already pulling the two girls aside to remind them of everything they needed to watch out for along the journey. You two are heading to the same place. Stick together at all times, and never wander off alone. Do not eat anything offered by strangers on the road, and never follow unfamiliar people anywhere. Having just escaped a human trafficker incident, Su Yan was still haunted by fear, and she took every word Zhang Xia said to heart. As for Ning Qinghe, she possessed a system and extraordinary strength. Human traffickers ought to be the ones afraid of crossing her, yet she remained vigilant and silently committed Zhang Xia's warnings to memory. Another thing, once you reach the village, do not offend the villagers. Try to get along well with them. Observe more and speak less. If the village leader and cadres are decent folk, you may keep close contact with them. If they are not, do not provoke them either. The two nodded in acknowledgement. Zhang Xia went on. You are still young, so do not rush into romantic relationships, especially with people from the village. Do not be fooled by sweet words. No one can tell how policies might change in the future. Your father and I will keep a close eye on developments. We will find every opportunity to arrange for you to return to the city. Hearing this, Ning Qinghe could not help but admire Zhang Xia. Her maternal devotion was truly touching. Though most of these words were meant for Su Yan, Ning Qinghe listened carefully. As the saying went, older folk carried wisdom. As a doctor at the municipal hospital, Zhang Xia had met countless people. Her experience and advice deserved to be heeded. As departure drew near, worry was plainly written across Zhang Xia's face. Ning Qinghe stepped forward and patted Zhang Xia's hand. Aunt Zhang, rest assured. Yan Yan and I will look out for each other, and I will keep an eye on her. Zhang Xia knew her daughter's temperament. Protected by the family for so many years, Su Yan had never experienced the cruelty of the world. She had lain awake night after night fretting over Su Yan's life in the countryside ever since learning her daughter would be sent down to the villages. Now, after hearing Ning Qinghe's promise, the heavy anxiety weighing on her heart eased slightly. Qinghe, hearing you say that puts my mind at ease. Take good care of yourself too. If you run into any trouble, write or telephone your Uncle Su and me. While Zhang Xia talked with Ning Qinghe, Su Wano seized the chance to pull Su Yan aside. Su Yan thought her elder brother was acting strangely and asked, "What is it, second brother?" Su Wanzhou glanced at his younger sister, somewhat sheepish, before speaking. "Is this the Ning Qinghe who saved you?" "Yes, why? Why didn't you mention how beautiful she is?" "You never asked. Besides, Qinghe is beautiful, so why would I bring it up?" The words barely left Su Yan's mouth when a thought dawned on her. Could her brother have taken a fancy to Ning Qinghe? "Second brother, tell me honestly, do you like Qinghe?" Su Wanzhou had not expected his sister to be so straightforward. He admitted, "I have never met a woman more beautiful than her. The moment she appeared, my heart simply slipped out of my control." As he spoke, he stole frequent glances toward Ning Qinghe, relieved that she was not paying attention to them. Su Yan was utterly stunned to discover her famously picky elder brother had fallen for Ning Qinghe at first sight. Her voice rose involuntarily. "What?" Su Yan's exclamation was loud enough that Zhang Xia, Su Jigua, and Ning Qinghe, who had been chatting, turned to look at the siblings. Su Wando wanted nothing more than to knock his unreliable sister unconscious. Panicking, he clamped a hand over Su Yan's mouth. Ning Qinghe happened to turn her head and witness this scene. Zhang Xia, seeing the siblings' antics, was not overly surprised. She shot them a stern warning glare before continuing her conversation with Ning Qinghe. Under their mother's sharp gaze, Su Wanzhou removed his hand from Su Yan's mouth and stared at her with a look of reproach. He feared he had ruined his impression in front of Ning Qinghe. Knowing she had acted too impulsively, Su Yan lowered her voice and asked cautiously, "Brother, do you truly have feelings for Qinghe?" Su Wanzhou did not answer. His gaze kept drifting toward Ning Qinghe, and his affection was plain for anyone to see. "No wonder you turned down every match mother arranged for you in the past. So this is the kind of woman you like." Still, Qinghe truly is beautiful and kind. I like her too. If I were a man, I would want to marry her as well. Su Wanzhou cut off his sister's rambling before she could say anything further. I pulled you aside to ask, do you know if Qinghe has a sweetheart or someone she likes? Su Yan was stumped. She had only known Ning Qinghe for 4 or 5 days and had never gotten the chance to ask about her romantic life. I haven't asked her. Su Wanzhou shot her a look of exasperation. Then while you are in the countryside, quietly find out for me. If she is unattached, send me a letter to let me know. Su Yan readily agreed. All right, I will write to you once I find out. Truth be told, Su Yan was genuinely fond of Ning Qinghe. She would be more than happy if Ning Qinghe became her sister-in-law. Just then, the announcement echoed across the station, signaling the train's arrival, putting an end to their conversation. Once the train came to a halt, Su Zhigua and Su Wano carried Ning Qinghe and Su Yan's luggage aboard. They helped the girls find their seats, stowed the bags securely, offered a few final reminders, and then stepped back onto the platform. From outside the carriage windows, the three watched Ning Qinghe and Su Yan seated inside, calling out constant parting advice. Write or telephone home if you encounter any hardships. Su Yan nodded and waved goodbye to her parents. Ning Qinghe also waved towards Su Zhigua and Zhang Xia. Su Wanzhou's eyes never left Ning Qinghe. She could not understand the intensity of his stare, and it made her feel faintly flustered. Ning Qinghe turned awkwardly toward Zhang Xia. And, do not worry. Yan Yan and I will take good care of ourselves. Another station announcement warned the passengers the train was about to depart. The group waved reluctantly as they bid farewell. As the train pulled away, Su Wanzhou stood rooted to the spot, staring after it, wondering if he would ever get the chance to meet Ning Qinghe again. The train steamed out of the station, heading toward Heilongjiang province. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan sat side by side, seats secured through connections Su Zhigua had made. Opposite them sat an elderly woman around 60 years old, accompanied by a chubby boy of 7 or 8. Beside the two girls sat another young woman roughly their age. She wore an indigo work uniform patched in several places and kept her head down, occupied with some task. Ever since boarding, the elderly woman had been observing Ning Qinghe and Su Yan intently. She had clearly seen the two men who had escorted them onto the train, one young, one older, both seemingly holding respectable formal jobs. After sizing the girls up, the woman smiled at them. Girls, were those your family members who just saw you off? Ning Qinghe said nothing. Seeing Ning Qinghe remain silent, Su Yan also ignored the woman. When she received no reply, the woman's smile faded, and she muttered quietly, nothing to be so stuck up about. Suit yourselves. Ning Qinghe pretended not to hear and leaned back against her seat to rest. Su Yan chatted with Ning Qinghe every now and then, and Ning Qinghe responded casually. Before long, both grew weary and closed their eyes to rest. When noon came, passengers throughout the carriage began taking out food for lunch. Grain was precious in this era. Only government staff traveling on official business could afford meals in the dining car. The vast majority of passengers brought their own provisions. The passengers in this carriage were no exception. The elderly woman pulled out 2 white steamed buns, handing one to her young grandson. As she ate, she kept glancing across at Ning Qinghe and Su Yan. The young woman with the braids, who had kept her head down all this time, lifted her head. She pulled a rough grain cornbread from the cloth sack at her feet and nibbled at it slowly. Ning Qinghe had intended to retrieve food from her spatial storage under the cover of her satchel, but Su Yan held out a hand to stop her. Su Yan pulled 2 aluminium lunchboxes from the backpack by her feet. Zhang Xia had prepared the food early that morning. One box held braised pork, the other pork dumplings, with extra portions made for Ning Qinghe. Su Yan spoke. Qinghe, Mother prepared this food for us this morning. She made enough for you too. Let's eat together. Su Yan opened the lids, revealing snow, white dumplings, and rich braised pork. The savory aroma quickly spread through the air. The elderly woman had thought her white steamed buns were quite decent enough to draw envy, but the sight of the dumplings and meat made her mouthful of bun taste bland. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan shared the dumplings and braised pork, paying no mind to the surrounding stares. The young boy sitting beside the woman caught sight of the food and immediately burst into tears. Grandma, I want meat. I want dumplings too. His eyes were fixed firmly on the contents of the lunchboxes. The elderly woman said nothing, simply staring at Ning Qinghe and Su Yan. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan chose to ignore him. Food was scarce in these times, and dumplings and braised pork were rare luxuries. No one would hand precious food over to strangers for no reason. The boy continued crying, his wails growing louder, drawing the attention of everyone in the carriage. Seeing her grandson's tantrum was attracting attention, the woman hardened her expression and addressed Ning Qinghe and Su Yan. "Girls, look how upset my grandson is. You have so many dumplings and meat, surely more than the two of you can finish. The child craves a taste. Could you spare some for him?" Su Yan met her gaze. "This food was specially prepared by our families. It is exactly enough for the two of us. We have no extra." The woman refused to back down. "How can there not be extra? I saw the full lunchboxes. Young girls can skip a bite without going hungry. This child rarely gets to taste meat. Do a good deed and let him try a little." Several passengers passing by overheard and stopped to watch. Some merely looked on, while others murmured persuasion. "The boy is crying so badly, just give him a little bite. Harmony makes the journey easier." These words were thinly veiled pressure, demanding that the girls give in. Ning Qinghe set down her chopsticks and looked straight at the elderly woman. "Every grain of food we have was earned through our family's hard work. Grain was distributed on fixed quotas. Every portion is accounted for. We have no obligation to share with strangers." The woman's face darkened at once. "How can you two young girls be so stingy? You dress neatly, clearly from well-off families, yet you begrudge a mouthful of food. Where is your compassion? The men who saw you off look like important people. With such comfortable circumstances, do you really care so much about a little food? Are you bullying our poor grandmother and grandson?" The woman raised her voice deliberately, speaking harshly in an attempt to force the girls to concede out of embarrassment. The braided young woman paused mid-bite of her cornbread, keeping her head lowered, afraid to watch the confrontation. Su Yan's expression turned cold. "How well off our family is has nothing to do with you. We have every right to decide what to do with our own food. It is your responsibility to control your grandson's cravings, not ours. Do not try to manipulate us with appeals to kindness, because you cannot discipline your child." The woman was struck speechless for a moment, then grew even angrier. "Good grief. Young people these days have no respect for elders or care for children. I spoke to you politely, yet you refused to listen to reason." The boy kept crying, his eyes still locked on the lunchboxes. Realizing words were ineffective, the boy suddenly stretched out his hand. He was reaching for the food inside Ning Qinghe and Su Yan's lunchboxes. Ning Qinghe had anticipated his move. She tapped his outstretched hand sharply with her chopstick. The boy cried even louder from the pain. Seeing her grandson struck, the elderly woman flew into a rage and began shouting accusations. Unable to get any food through her demands, the woman's demeanor turned vicious as she spoke to the two girls. "You two privileged young ladies get to eat braised pork and dumplings on a regular basis. You must be daughters of capitalist roaders, picking on us poor working folk. In this era, being labeled a capitalist roader or accused of oppressing the poor could bring catastrophic consequences." Ning Qinghe immediately recognized the woman was far more than a petty opportunist. She was viciously trying to pin a devastating political label on them. She stared directly at the woman and retorted, "Our families are all legitimate working, class, and poor peasant households. We are not capitalist roaders. We are educated youth responding to the national call to go to the countryside. Our parents felt sorry for us traveling such a long way and prepared meat for the journey out of parental love. Are we committing a crime simply for eating ordinary home-cooked meals? Does eating meat and dumplings automatically make someone at fault, even ordinary common people?" Many passengers in the carriage who came from reasonably comfortable families and had brought meat provisions grew displeased upon hearing this and turned to look. Unable to win the argument, the woman remained unreasonable. "I care nothing for your arguments. My grandson will have meat today. You hurt his hand just now, so you must give him the braised pork and dumplings as compensation." Ning Qinghe could not help but laugh at her shamelessness. "Why should we compensate you? Simply because you are greedy and unreasonable. If your grandson craves meat, you may buy it yourself. We are not his parents, and we have no duty to indulge him." The woman trembled with anger, pointing at Ning Qinghe and Su Yan, unable to find a response. Su Yan watched as Ning Qinghe reasoned flawlessly, leaving the woman without a counterargument, and felt a surge of satisfaction. Several onlookers voiced their opinions. The boy's craving for meat is his guardian's failing, not anyone else's problem. That food was bought with money and grain coupons. No one is obligated to hand it over to strangers. Traveling does not give anyone the right to make unreasonable demands of others. The elderly woman knew she was in the wrong and could not argue against Ning Qinghe. Her grandson continued wailing beside her. Frustrated and furious, she spanked him on the bottom. Stop crying. It is nothing special. My son serves in the army and gets to eat all sorts of fine food. We do not need your measly braised pork and dumplings anyway. With that, she roughly pulled the boy back. They fell silent. The boy knew he would get nothing today, yet his eyes still drifted repeatedly toward the lunchbox beside Ning Qinghe. Su Yan shot him a cold glare. The boy immediately composed himself, shrinking timidly beside his grandmother and daring not cry again. After the commotion, Ning Qinghe and Su Yan lost all appetite. She closed both lunchboxes and set them safely beside her by the window. The two leaned back in their seats and closed their eyes, not exchanging another word for the rest of the journey. The seating area remained quiet. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a banquet spread for 10 tables at a 5-star hotel, 100 portions of braised pork, and 100 portions of pork dumplings. Hearing the system notification, Ning Qinghe's foul mood caused by the grandmother and grandson lightened. For the remainder of the trip, the elderly woman and the boy behaved themselves and caused no more trouble. The quiet young woman with the braids never spoke a single word. The train traveled onward and gradually slowed as it pulled into Station A. The elderly woman and her grandson disembarked. New passengers flooded onto the platform and boarded the train. 3 newcomers, 2 men and 1 woman, entered the carriage where Ning Qinghe and Su Yan sat. When Ning Qinghe lifted her eyes and recognized them, she thought to herself that fate had a cruel sense of humor. On this train bound for the countryside, she had run into familiar faces. 2 of the 3 new arrivals were the man and woman she had met previously at the state-run restaurant, Jiang Runan and Gu Yan. Jiang Runan and Gu Yan had barely sat down when they spotted Ning Qinghe across from them. The smile on Jiang Runan's face faded instantly. Why is it you? Ning Qinghe raised an eyebrow and looked at her. Truly, misfortune brings rivals together. Jiang Runan pouted unhappily. Gu Yan, let's move to another carriage. I won't sit near her. Gu Yan glanced at Ning Qinghe, then back at Jiang Runan, looking troubled. Runan, don't be willful. Seats for those going to the countryside were assigned in advance. There aren't any spare seats to switch to at short notice. Jiang Runan refused to back down. I want to move. I don't want to sit anywhere near someone like her. Ning Qinghe knew full well that someone like her referred to herself. She paid it no mind, watching Jiang Runan throw a tantrum calmly. If Jiang Runan really managed to get another seat, Ning Qinghe would welcome the peace. She had never intended to get tangled up with the male and female leads of the book. Thinking about the tangled fate between Jiang Runan and Gu Yan the system had told her about, as well as the plotlines surrounding Su Yan in the novel, Ning Qinghe turned to look at Su Yan beside her. It was then she noticed that Su Yan was not paying any attention to Gu Yan at all. Her gaze was fixed firmly on the handsome young man who had boarded the train together with the others. Su Yan's eyes lit up with admiration. She tugged lightly at Ning Qinghe's sleeve. Qinghe, look at that young man. He's incredibly good looking. I've never seen anyone so handsome before. Ning Qinghe followed Su Yan's line of sight. The young man had sharp, well-defined features, straight brows, and bright eyes. His thin lips pressed firmly together. He carried a cold, distant aura. He wore a crew cut, his features neat and striking, making him exceptionally handsome. Ning Qinghe was just about to speak when Jiang Runan's voice rang out again. Gu Yan, I really can't stay here. I have to change seats. Pestered relentlessly, Gu Yan looked around the carriage. He spotted a young man and woman seated nearby and walked over to speak awkwardly. Comrades, would you mind swapping seats with us? The young man had no objections and stood up straight away. The woman traveling with him frowned. I'm comfortable right here. Why should we move? Gu Yan spoke politely. My friend has fallen out with the girl sitting opposite, and they won't be at ease sharing this space. I'll give you 20 cents. Could you please swap with us? At the mention of 20 cents, the woman nodded immediately. Very well. And so Gu Yan successfully swapped seats with the pair. Seated across from Ning Qinghe now were the handsome man who had rescued her and the young man with a baby face. The woman who had taken the 20 cents ended up sitting next to Su Yan. To Ning Qinghe's surprise, the baby-faced young man turned out to be an old acquaintance of the man who had saved her. As soon as he sat down, he caught sight of Ning Qinghe across the aisle. His eyes widened at once, and he took the initiative to speak. Hello, comrade. My name is Fong Mo. It's a pleasure to meet you. Ning Qinghe nodded in reply. Hello. I'm Ning Qinghe. Fong Mo was naturally outgoing. "Comrade Qinghe, you're beautiful. The prettiest girl I've ever met." Ning Qinghe smiled slightly, but said nothing in response. She turned to the handsome young man beside Fong Mo and ventured a question. "Comrade, do you remember me?" The handsome man regarded her with a calm, detached expression. "I do not know you, comrade." Ning Qinghe thought he might have forgotten what happened that day, so she continued. "You pulled a girl who tried to drown herself out of the river by the canal in Haishur." The handsome man shook his head. "You have mistaken me for someone else. I have never been to Haishur." Ning Qinghe thought carefully. The face she had seen when she regained consciousness was definitely his. She could not have been wrong. His attitude made it clear, either he did not remember her, or he wished to have nothing to do with her. Ning Qinghe dropped the subject and fell silent. Seeing the lovely girl left without a word by his cold companion, Fong Mo elbowed the handsome man beside him. "Boss, the young lady took the trouble to talk to you. Don't be so cold." The handsome man shot Fong Mo a quiet glance and said nothing. An awkward silence settled over the seating area. The woman who had swapped seats for 20 cents broke the tension. "Are all of you educated youth heading to Heilongjiang to work in the countryside?" Feeling the awkwardness too, Su Yan quickly joined the conversation. "Yes, we're going to Heilongjiang. Are you as well?" The woman nodded. "I'm also going to the countryside. We're on the same train, so we're bound to cross paths. Let's introduce ourselves to one another." Su Yan agreed. "That's a good idea. We'll have someone to travel with along the way." The woman began first. "I'm Zhou Wei. I'm bound for Tianjin Production Brigade under Huaihua Commune." Su Yan brightened when she heard their destination matched. "I'm going to Tianjin Brigade too. My name is Su Yan and this is Ning Qinghe. We're both heading to Huaihua Commune's Tianjin Production Brigade. We can travel together from now on." Jiang Runan, seated on the other side of the aisle, heard this and curled her lip in displeasure. "What rotten luck. I'm going to end up in the same place as them." Gu Yan shook his head helplessly. "Runan, we're heading to the countryside now. Don't keep throwing tantrums." Jiang Runan turned her head and refused to look in their direction. Everyone's gaze drifted to the thin young woman who had sat quietly eating a steamed corn bun this whole time. The girl lifted her head. They saw her sallow, gaunt face. She wore her hair in 2 braids, and her clothes were covered in patches. Her voice trembled timidly. "Hello everyone. My name is Li Zhaodi. I'm also going to Tianjin Production Brigade of Huaihua Commune." Lastly, all eyes turned to the handsome man. He showed no intention of introducing himself. Fong Mo beside him spoke up on his behalf. "I'm Fong Mo. This is Xia Li. We too are also bound for Tianjin Production Brigade under Huaihua Commune." Truly, what a coincidence for all of us. Once everyone had introduced themselves, silence fell across the carriage. Ning Qinghe silently sighed to herself in her mind. What a tangled twist of fate. Just for this trip to the countryside, the novel's male lead, female lead, supporting characters, and herself, an insignificant side character, had all ended up together. She made up her mind. Her goal in going to the countryside was to live peacefully until the college entrance examination was reinstated. After that, she would focus on building her fortune and making a success of herself. She must avoid getting wrapped up in the romance and conflicts between the male and female leads. Ning Qinghe glanced at Su Yan beside her. She only hoped Su Yan would not let her heart rule her head and grow entangled with Gu Yan. Jiang Runan was a rebirth soul, her thoughts unfathomable. There was no telling if she would target Su Yan in the future. Each person was lost in their own thoughts, and no one spoke again. The journey stretched long, so everyone leaned back against their seats and closed their eyes to rest. Dusk came, and it was time for dinner. Gu Yan and Jiang Runan stood up and headed for the dining carriage. Left behind in the carriage, everyone took out the food they had brought along. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan ate the leftover braised pork and dumplings they had brought. Su Yan had taken them to the dining carriage to heat up earlier, and the two ate quietly. Fong Mo pulled out 2 dry flatbreads and held one out to Xia Li. Xia Li declined the bread and stood up, saying to Fong Mo, "You eat. I'm going to stretch my legs." With that, Xia Li strode away from his seat. Ning Qinghe paid him no heed and bent down to tidy her lunchbox. After they finished eating, Ning Qinghe got up to wash her lunchbox. She returned just as Xia Li came back to his seat. Silence returned to the carriage once more, and everyone closed their eyes to rest again. Late at night, the carriage was dim, and most passengers were fast asleep. Ning Qinghe was roused by faint movements. She opened her eyes and spotted a strange man and woman ahead, moving furtively as they rummaged through passengers' luggage one by one. Ning Qinghe instantly knew they were thieves. She did not make a sound. She closed her eyes again, pretending to sleep, keeping a close watch on their movements from the corner of her eye. It was then she noticed that Xia Li, who had appeared to rest with his eyes shut across from her, slowly opened his eyes. In the dim carriage, his gaze was sharp, fixed firmly on the two thieves ahead, never leaving them. Neither of them spoke. They silently observed together, waiting for the right moment without moving. The two thieves walked along the aisle, gradually drawing closer to their section of the carriage. Seeing that nearly everyone was sound asleep, they split up. One searched the seats on the left of the aisle, the other the right. The female thief crept towards Su Yan's seat and stretched out her hand to grab the cloth bag beside Su Yan. The moment her fingers were about to touch the bag, Ning Qinghe shot her hand forward and seized the female thief's wrist precisely. At the exact same time, a long, well-knit hand clamped onto the woman's arm. Ning Qinghe lifted her eyes and met Xia Li's gaze. They had moved in perfect unison. Their eyes locked briefly. No words were needed for each to understand the other's plan. Xia Li loosened his grip, leaving the female thief entirely under Ning Qinghe's control. Trapped, the woman struggled violently. She had not expected Ning Qinghe, who looked slender, to possess such strength. Her wrist was held fast, impossible to break free. Seeing his accomplice captured, the male thief turned to run. Xia Li moved swiftly, stepping forward twice to seize him. Within a few quick moves, he forced the man onto the floor and subdued him completely. Fang Mo, jolted awake, hurried over and pressed the male thief's shoulder to stop him from wriggling free and fleeing. Ning Qinghe kept a tight hold on the female thief and called out loudly, "Everyone wake up! Check your belongings, these two are thieves." Every passenger in the carriage woke at once and hurriedly checked their luggage and valuables. Gu Yan and Jiang Runan in the next seat also stirred awake. Jiang Runan immediately rummaged through her bundle and found her money, grain coupons, and her Plum brand wristwatch missing. She cried out anxiously, "Gu Yan, my money, coupons, and watch are gone." Other passengers also began speaking up, reporting stolen cash and supply tickets. When they saw the thieves restrained, someone hurried forward to find the train attendant in the next carriage. The attendant arrived and walked over to Ning Qinghe and the others. Everyone pointed to the two thieves pinned on the ground. The attendant searched them and found a pile of cash, coupons, and goods, including the Plum brand wristwatch that belonged to Jiang Runan. The attendant returned all stolen belongings to their owners. As the attendant led the thieves away, he thanked Ning Qinghe, Xia Li, and Fang Mo sincerely. "You young comrades acted bravely to stop the crime. It is admirable. Please leave the address of the commune where you will work in the countryside. I will send a letter to your commune to commend your brave actions." An idea crossed Ning Qinghe's mind. She volunteered the address of Tianjin Production Brigade, Huaihua Commune. If she arrived in the countryside with official recognition for her courageous deed, the commune and brigade leader would treat the new educated youth more kindly and would be less likely to make things difficult for them. Xia Li saw through Ning Qinghe's reasoning, yet he remained silent and did not expose her thoughts. After providing their information, everyone returned to their seats and settled down to rest again. The scene of them capturing the thieves in perfect coordination might as well have never happened. Though Ning Qinghe closed her eyes to rest, her mind was buzzing, and sleep eluded her. She activated the learning cards from her system, using the quiet late hours to master new skills. Ever since she obtained the learning cards, she set aside time every day to learn different abilities. The system had told her that continuously accumulating wealth and hitting small fortune-making targets would unlock higher-tier rewards. This filled Ning Qinghe with greater confidence for the days ahead. The train traveled for 3 consecutive days before finally arriving in Heilongjiang province. It was September and the autumn harvest was soon to begin in the rural villages. As they stepped off the train, they saw staff from the Educated Youth Office of Huaihua Commune waiting for them at the station. The staff counted all educated youth assigned to Huaihua Commune one by one. Once the roll call finished, everyone boarded a bus arranged to carry them onward. They rode the bus for more than an hour and finally reached Huaihua Commune. By the time they arrived, night had fully fallen. Staff from the Educated Youth Office arranged for all newly arrived educated youth to stay at a guest house for one night. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan paid extra to book a private room for 2. Jiang Runan and Gu Yan both came from well-off families. Though Jiang Runen's family had been demoted, they had still left her plenty of cash and supply coupons. Guyan's household was wealthy and lacked no supplies or money. Each of them also paid for separate rooms. Zhou Wenmei and Li Zhaodi could not afford extra expenses, so they moved into the shared dormitory rooms arranged free of charge by the Educated Youth Office. Multiple people shared each room, with beds allocated to everyone. The group settled into their respective accommodation. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan put down their luggage and quickly washed up in the room. After days of non-stop travel on the train, their feet were swollen from sitting for hours, and both were exhausted. Ning Qinghe retrieved peach crisp pastries and a tin of canned fruit from her spatial storage and shared them with Su Yan. Su Yan asked no questions, focused only on eating to ease her weariness. Once they finished, Ning Qinghe suggested soaking their feet to relieve fatigue. She went to the guest house staff and paid 20 cents to rent an enamel basin, then fetched hot water. They took turns soaking their feet. Their tense bodies relaxed, and much of the exhaustion from the long journey faded away. That night, the two slept soundly in the bed. Early the next morning, staff from the Educated Youth Office knocked on every door to wake the educated youth. Ning Qinghe was deep in sleep when the knocking came. Still half asleep, she pulled the quilt over her head. Su Yan tugged the quilt away from her. "Qinghe, the staff are calling us. We can't linger, we need to get up quickly." Ning Qinghe knew that once they reached the countryside, they would have to follow all arrangements and could not afford to be willful. She dragged herself up quickly, washed and packed her luggage before walking out of the guest house. The Educated Youth Office staff had been waiting outside, looking impatient. They counted the group and noticed Jiang Runen and Gu Yan were missing. "Where are Jiang Runen and Gu Yan?" Just as the question was spoken, Gu Yan hurried down the stairs. "I'm sorry we're late. Jiang Runen is still washing up. Could everyone please wait a moment?" The staff member's expression darkened. "You are coming to the countryside to receive re-education from the poor and lower-middle peasants. You'd better get rid of these bad habits." Guyan knew they were in the wrong and did not argue. The staff were displeased. They had arrived punctually early in the morning to wait, yet these educated youth could not be bothered to arrive on time. Everyone waited for more than 10 minutes before Jiang Runen sauntered downstairs. Every person present wore an unpleasant expression. Jiang Runen paid no notice to their moods as she adjusted her appearance. She had dressed carefully that morning, wearing a new-style dress and white sheepskin leather shoes. On the train, she had caught sight of Xia Li and been instantly captivated by his good looks. He was cold and reserved, so she had not dared to strike up conversation. She had dressed up today hoping to leave a good impression on him. Once everyone gathered, they followed the staff to the road north of the county town. A crowd waited there, brigade leaders and staff from each village who had come to collect the newly arrived educated youth. Personnel from each brigade called out names from their lists to claim the educated youth assigned to them. Ning Qinghe, Su Yan, Xia Li, Fang Mo, Gu Yan, Jiang Runen, Zhou Wenmei, and Li Zhaodi, all 8 of them, were assigned to Tianjin Production Brigade. After roll call finished, a middle-aged man stepped forward to speak. "My name is Lin Aigua. I am the leader of Tianjin Production Brigade, and I'm here to collect you today." Ning Qinghe looked him over. Lin Aigua was in his early 40s, around 180 centimeters tall, with a sturdy build forged by years of farm labor. Ning Qinghe pulled Su Yan forward and greeted him politely. "Good morning, brigade leader." Lin Aigua's expression softened when he saw how courteous the 2 girls were. He glanced over the 3 young male educated youth, Xia Li, Fang Mo, and Gu Yan, and nodded inwardly. The brigade badly needed laborers, so receiving 3 young men alongside the women was far better than getting only female educated youth. The group followed Lin Aigua away from the roadside and spotted an ox cart parked nearby. Jiang Runen's face twisted with disgust the moment she saw it, and she muttered under her breath, "This ox cart reeks. I won't ride on it." Lin Aigua heard her words, and his expression turned icy. "The ox cart is not for passengers. It's only meant to carry your luggage." Tianjin Production Brigade is among the closest villages to Huaihua Commune, but it's still a tower walk on foot. If you find the ox cart's smell unbearable, you can carry your luggage and walk all the way. At the thought of hauling her luggage such a long distance on foot, Jiang Runen immediately changed her tune. "You came to collect the educated youth. It's your responsibility to take me to the village." Lin Aigua's face darkened further upon hearing this. Seeing the brigade leader growing angry, Gu Yan quickly pulled Jiang Runen aside. He knew better than to offend the brigade leader once they began life as educated youth in the village. If policies changed later and opportunities to return to the cities arose, the brigade leader could refuse to sign the necessary paperwork, leaving them trapped with no way out. Jiu Yen cut her off as she prepared to argue, his voice tight with irritation. Stop talking. If you anger the brigade leader, you'll have a hard time living in the village. Persuaded by Guyan's warning, Jiang Runin clamped her mouth shut and said no more. Once Jiang Runin quieted down, Guyan smiled awkwardly at the brigade leader. Please don't take her words to heart, brigade leader. She was spoiled by her family growing up. The brigade leader had met countless educated youth over the years. Every intake always brought one or two troublesome young people, and he had long grown used to it. Now that everyone was ready, they loaded all their luggage onto the ox cart and set off on foot for the village behind Linigua. Watching Guyan constantly clear up the messes Jiang Runin made, Ning Qinghe could not help feeling worn out on his behalf. Jiang Runin was supposedly the female lead of the book, yet she acted as if she had no sense, stirring up trouble wherever she went. Ning Qinghe truly could not understand what Guyan saw in her. Just then, the system suddenly spoke in her mind. I know. Ning Qinghe had grown bored walking, so she communicated with the system in her thoughts. Tell me everything. Glad to receive the request, the system prepared to explain the tangled history between Jiang Runin and Guyan. Jiang Runin and Guyan grew up together in the same residential compound. Guyan had been famously mischievous as a boy. He climbed trees to steal bird eggs and swam in rivers to catch fish. He did everything you can imagine. Once, Guyan went down to the river to catch fish. His legs suddenly cramped, and he nearly drowned. It was Jiang Runin who spotted him struggling in the water and ran to fetch adults, who then pulled Guyan to safety. Thanks to this incident, the two families gradually grew close. From that day onward, in Guyan's eyes, Jiang Runin was a kind, hearted girl. No matter how headstrong she acted, Guyan always quietly looked out for her. I've always wondered. Jiang Runin isn't some breathtaking beauty, and her personality leaves a lot to be desired. So why is Guyan so fond of her? Turns out he's just blinded by his affection for her. Exactly. Truth is, Jiang Runin has always known Guyan likes her, yet she keeps stringing him along. The Gu family holds far greater influence and status than the Jiang family. For years, relying on the story of how she saved Guyan, the Gu family repeatedly lent support to the Jiangs. The Jiangs benefited greatly from their connection. When the Jiang family was reported and sent away this time, Jiang Runin avoided punishment and only had to go to the countryside. That was all thanks to Guyan, who persuaded the Gu family to pull strings for her. No wonder it all makes sense now. The group was chatting animatedly when they saw Jiang Runin walking over to Xiaoli. Comrade, I heard you introduce yourself on the train as Xiaoli. My name is Jiang Runin. Xiaoli had a cold, aloof aura, clearly not someone easy to approach, yet Jiang Runin insisted on closing the distance to speak with him. Watching the scene unfold, Ning Qinghe's eyes lit up with gossip. System, are they following the plot now? Jiang Runin falls for Xiaoli at first sight and starts pursuing him, right? Yes, it looks that way. Oh no, should I follow my designated plot too? Hearing Ning Qinghe's thought, the system rolled its eyes mentally. Host, you need to be clear about your role. You are merely a minor character who dies at the very start. A throwaway figure whose fate exists only to set up Xiaoli's entrance. You have no storyline of your own to follow. Ah, alright then. Su Yan noticed Ning Qinghe staring at Jiang Runin and sidled up beside her. Qinghe, what are you looking at? I'm watching Jiang Runin. She's trying to talk to Xiaoli, but he's ignoring her and she still refuses to back off. Guyan protects Jiang Runin at every turn. He must like her. I wonder if Guyan will get jealous. Su Yan followed Ning Qinghe's gaze and saw Jiang Runin leaning towards Xiaoli. She then glanced toward Guyan and saw the gloomy look on his face. Guyan seems rather pitiful. Ning Qinghe's heart sank when she heard that. Sometimes, a woman's feelings for a man begin with sympathy. Sympathy can turn to compassion, and compassion can easily bloom into fondness. Yan, he is not pitiful at all. Don't feel sorry for him. Su Yan looked at Ning Qinghe in confusion. In her opinion, loving someone who does not return your feelings is a tragic thing. It is Guyan's choice to like Jiang Runin. If he cares for her, he ought to bravely confess his feelings. Even if he gets rejected, he can finally let go, knowing he tried his best. He chooses to hide his affection and watch the girl he likes chase another man. That outcome is of his own making, so he deserves no sympathy. Su Yan pondered Ning Qinghe's words and found them strangely reasonable. Love requires mutual affection. If someone knows you have feelings for them yet pretends to be unaware, comfortably accepting your devotion without reciprocating, then either their character is flawed or the two of you are simply incompatible. Qinghe, you're right. Thinking about it this way, whatever happens between them is Gu Yan's own decision. He can't blame anyone else. Precisely. A thought suddenly occurred to Su Yan, and she tentatively asked, Qinghe, do you have someone you like? Ning Qinghe shook her head. Not yet. But if I were to fall for someone, I would take the initiative to pursue them and voice my feelings. If they still don't return my affection, then we are simply not meant to be. Su Yan secretly rejoiced at her answer. If Qinghe had no sweetheart, she could try to match her up with her second elder brother. Su Yan lost interest in Gu Yan and made up her mind to write a letter to her brother once they settled down at the village, telling him Ning Qinghe was unattached. No matter how Jiang Runin tried to strike up a conversation, Xia Li paid her no mind. He barely spoke a word, maintaining his icy demeanor. Fang Emo watched Jiang Runin attempt to chat up his leader, while Xia Li remained unresponsive. If he kept acting this cold, how would he ever find a partner? Boss, Comrade Jiang is talking to you. Could you at least reply to her? She must feel hurt being ignored like this. Xia Li shot Fang Emo a sharp glance. Do you have nothing better to do? Sensing his leader's sharp displeasure, Fang Emo shrank his neck and fell silent. They walked for roughly an hour. Jiang Runin no longer cared about talking to Xia Li. Her feet throbbed terribly. She had worn a dress and leather shoes that morning hoping to catch Xia Li's eye. But the path ahead was bumpy and uneven. Her shoes rubbed relentlessly against her heels, and blisters must have formed on the soles of her feet. The pain was almost unbearable. She had never endured such hardship in her life. I'm not walking any further. Jiang Runin squatted by the roadside and began to cry. The production brigade leader frowned darkly at her spoiled display. When Gu Yan saw her tear-streaked face, he panicked at once and hurried to kneel beside her. Runin, what's wrong now? Jiang Runin sobbed, my shoes rub my feet raw. It hurts too much, I can't keep walking. Gu Yan sighed helplessly. You knew we had a long walk into the village today, yet you chose to wear these shoes. Blisters were inevitable. Jiang Runin refused to listen. She glared angrily at Gu Yan and continued crying. With no other choice, Gu Yan turned to the brigade leader. Brigade leader, her feet really hurt badly. Can she ride on the ox cart for a while? The brigade leader's expression hardened. Everyone else is walking into the village. Why should she receive special treatment? Is she far more precious than everyone else, who are all exhausted too? Embarrassed, Gu Yan turned toward the other educated youths. Comrades, Runin truly isn't feeling well. Can we reach an agreement to let her ride the ox cart for a short stretch? No one spoke up. Zhou Wenmei immediately voiced her disagreement. All of us are marching on foot. None of us complain or throw tantrums. Why does she get special treatment just because she cries? I'm worn out too. Can I ride the ox cart as well? Ning Qinghe and Su Yan stayed quiet, refusing to take sides. The other male educated youths also said nothing. Seeing that no one was willing to agree, Gu Yan negotiated again with the brigade leader. Brigade leader, we still have another hour's journey ahead. How about letting the female educated youths take turns riding the ox cart, 15 minutes each? No one gets preferential treatment, and we won't fall behind schedule. The brigade leader looked at Ning Qinghe, Su Yan, Zhou Wenmei, and the other young women to ask for their opinions. Everyone thought the arrangement was fair and nodded in agreement. As soon as she heard she could ride the cart, all of Jiang Runin's displeasure vanished. She quickly scrambled onto the edge of the ox cart, moving surprisingly fast. The brigade leader still wore a stern face, but did not stop her, leading the group onward. 15 minutes later, Zhou Wenmei spoke up immediately. Time's up, Jiang Runin. Get down, it's our turn. Jiang Runin pouted and looked pleadingly at Gu Yan. Gu Yan, my feet still hurt. Can I ride a little longer? Gu Yan looked conflicted. Zhou Wenmei refused to back down. We agreed 15 minutes for each person. Why should you hog extra time? Every extra minute you ride means someone else has to walk further. Come down now. She reached out to pull Jiang Runin off the cart. Forced to jump down, Jiang Runin stepped on a small stone on the ground. The impact tore the blisters on the bottom of her feet, sending a sharp wave of pain through her. Flying into a rage, she pointed at Zhou Wenmei and shouted, "Why did you yank me? If you tear my dress, can you afford to pay for it?" Ignoring her shouting, Zhou Wenmei climbed onto the ox cart without hesitation. The brigade leader paid little attention to their argument, as long as they did not delay the journey. For the rest of the trip, the 4 female educated youths took turns riding the ox cart for 15 minutes each. They alternated until they finally reached the headquarters of Tianjin Production Brigade shortly past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was the villagers' midday break, and everyone rested at home before afternoon farm work. Several children played near the village entrance, including the brigade leader's young grandson, Nuwatsi. When Nuwatsi spotted Lin Igua, he called out to him. Grandfather waved him over. Take these new educated youths to the educated youth dormitory and hand them over to Zhou Igua. Nuwatsi nodded and turned toward the group. Follow me, everyone. The youths carried their luggage down from the ox cart and trailed behind the boy, heading to the educated youth quarters at the far end of the village. The dormitory compound was built of adobe. There was one main room, flanked by 2 side rooms furnished with large shared bunk beds. To the left of the yard stood a kitchen, and to the right, a firewood shed. Male educated youths occupied one side room, and females the other. The courtyard itself was spacious and open. After leading the group to the gate, Nuwatsi ran into the yard. A moment later, a young man in his 20s stepped outside. He wore his hair parted neatly and sported black, rimmed glasses. This was Zhou Igua, whom the brigade leader had mentioned. Zhou Igua gestured for Nuwatsi to leave. You can head back now. I'll take care of things here. The boy ran off, and Zhou Igua faced the newly arrived youths and introduced himself. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhou Igua, the person in charge of the educated youth dormitory. I manage all affairs here, and Xinyan oversees the female quarters. Come to either of us if you have any questions. 12 educated youths originally lived here. Over the years, some married local villagers and settled down, while others secured transfers back to the cities. 7 remain now, for young men and 3 young women. The rooms are somewhat crowded, so you'll need to make do for the time being. It's past lunchtime, and everyone's resting before afternoon labor. Grab something simple to eat and rest a while. You can borrow grain from the brigade headquarters. Each person may take 50 jin of coarse grain for now. After the autumn harvest, grain rations will be distributed based on work points. Since you haven't earned any work points yet, the grain you borrow in advance will be deducted once you accumulate enough points next year. If you have the means, you can trade goods with villagers or purchase supplies at the town supply and marketing cooperative. Feel free to ask me anything else later. Tonight, I'll bring the veteran educated youths over for you all to formally meet. After finishing his explanation, Zhou Igua led them into the courtyard. He guided Xiali, Feng Mo, and Guyen to the men's dormitory on the east side, then pointed out the women's quarters on the west side. Once the young men were settled, Zhou Igua stood at the women's dormitory door and called for Chen Yan. Shortly after, a young woman with short hair walked out. She was in her 20s, with dark skin dotted with sunspots from years working outdoors. The brigade leader had notified her about the new arrivals earlier, so she was not surprised to see them. Zhou Igua said, "These are the new female, educated youths. Arrange their living quarters." Chen Yan nodded. "Leave it to me." With that, Zhou Igua departed. Chen Yan led Ning Qinghe, Su Yan, Jiang Runan, Zhou Wenmei, and Li Zhaodi into the women's room. A long shared bunk bed stretched across the space. Only 3 female educated youths remain here now, Chen Yan explained briefly. The others either married villagers or returned to the city. Pick an empty spot to set up your bedding and rest. I won't keep you long, we need to head out for farm work this afternoon. She returned to her own bunk to rest. Ning Qinghe exchanged a glance with Su Yan, and the two chose empty spots toward the back to unpack their luggage. Zhou Wenmei and Li Zhaodi picked beds in the middle. Only Jiang Runan stood frozen in place, her face clouded with displeasure. She had never imagined living conditions in the countryside would be this poor. No private rooms, everyone had to sleep side by side on a shared bunk bed. Unable to accept the arrangement, she dropped her luggage and stormed out of the women's dormitory. Ning Qinghe shot her a glance and paid her no further attention. Life in the countryside was only just beginning. She would sort everything out properly once they were fully settled. Everyone unpacked their belongings, ignoring where Jiang Runan had gone. Ning Qinghe made her own bed before helping Su Yan arrange hers. The two shared a few pieces of crisp pastry to quiet their hunger. Ning Qinghe kept abundant supplies stored in her spatial storage, including full feasts from high-end restaurants, but bringing such extravagant food out openly would arouse suspicion. For now, she could only take out ordinary pastries to tide them over. They had barely finished eating when the village bell rang, signaling the start of afternoon farm work. The three veteran female, educated youths rose quickly, ready to head to the fields. Ning Qinghe called out to Chen Yan as she prepared to leave. "Comrade Chen, do you know anyone in the village selling chests or furniture?" Chen Yan replied, "If you want to trade for cabinets and storage boxes, look for Carpenter Wang. Most furniture in the village is made by him." Ning Qinghe understood direct sales were uncommon in this era. All transactions took the form of barter. As Chen Yan turned to leave, Ning Qinghe handed her 2 pieces of pastry. "Thank you, Comrade Chen." Chen Yan smiled gently at her as she accepted the pastry. "Come find me anytime if you have questions." She left to join the farm labor. Ning Qinghe asked Zhou Wenmei and Li Xiaodi if they wanted to go together to purchase storage chests. They agreed at once, and the 4 set off to find Carpenter Wang. As they walked out of the dormitory, they passed many villagers carrying farm tools heading to the fields. Ning Qinghe stopped a village child, gave him a white rabbit milk candy, and asked him to lead them to Carpenter Wang's home. Carpenter Wang's wife was on her way out to work. When she saw them, she realized they were the newly arrived educated youths. She greeted them warmly. "You must be the new educated youths. You all have such fair, tender skin, unlike us country folk, weathered rough by wind and sun." Ning Qinghe smiled and did not respond. Zhou Wenmei spoke up. "Auntie, we've come to see Carpenter Wang. We hope to trade for a few storage chests." At once, Carpenter Wang's wife grew more enthusiastic. "My husband's inside. I'll call him out." She went into the house and fetched the carpenter. Ning Qinghe saw a man in his 40s wearing a patched blue cotton tunic, his skin deeply tanned. She spoke politely. "Uncle Carpenter, we'd like to trade for several chests and cabinets." Accustomed to villagers ordering furniture, Carpenter Wang led them to one side of his yard, where finished pieces stood on display: cabinets, stools, chairs, and camphorwood chests. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan picked one camphorwood chest and a small con cabinet. Zhou Wenmei and Li Xiaodi had tighter budgets and each chose only a camphorwood chest. "Uncle Carpenter, how much for the chests and small cabinet?" Ning Qinghe asked. "1 yuan for the small cabinet. The camphorwood chests take more work to craft, so 2 yuan each." Ning Qinghe and Su Yan came from well-off families and paid readily. Zhou Wenmei and Li Xiaodi hesitated over the cost, but bit the bullet and bought their chests. Lockable storage kept personal belongings safe, though they would need to buy padlocks later at the supply and marketing cooperative. They had quite a lot to carry, so they asked the carpenter for help. "Uncle Carpenter, we have many items. Could you arrange delivery to the educated youth dormitory?" Carpenter Wang readily agreed. "No problem. I'll send my son to bring them over shortly." The girls thanked him and left. On the walk back, they crossed paths with Xia Li, Fang Mo, Gu Yan, and Jiang Runan. A little earlier, Jiang Runan had been complaining non-stop to Gu Yan about the shabby conditions at the dormitory. Gu Yan patiently explained the situation. The new educated youths had no choice but to stay in the dormitory for the time being, and moving into a villager's private home would be far less safe. Jiang Runan was eventually persuaded, and Gu Yan had helped her make her bed. When Fang Mo spotted Ning Qinghe's group, he took the initiative to greet them. "Comrade Ning, Comrade Su, we're heading to the brigade headquarters to collect our grain rations. Would you like to come along?" The women agreed, and the whole group traveled together to the brigade headquarters. With directions from local children, they arrived without trouble, and each received 50 jin of coarse grain. Staring at the sack of rough grain, Jiang Runan's face twisted with disgust. "It's all coarse grain. How am I supposed to eat this? I can't stomach it." Zhou Yuanmei immediately grew annoyed and retorted, "If you dislike it so much, don't eat it. No one is forcing you. Now that you've come to the countryside, set aside your spoiled young lady attitude." Jiang Runan looked hurt. "I was just complaining casually." Zhou Yuanmei lost interest in arguing with her. She could not stand Jiang Runan's spoiled, entitled behavior. All of them were sent down to the countryside, yet Ning Qinghe and Su Yan never grumbled. Only Jiang Runan carried on as if she deserved special treatment. Everyone carried their grain back to the dormitory. After a morning of non-stop walking and traveling, all of them were worn out. Ning Qinghe, Su Yan, and the others lay down on the bunks and fell soundly asleep. She was woken some time later by noise in the room. Opening her eyes, Ning Qinghe saw the veteran educated youths returning from farm work. Chen Yan apologized for disturbing the new arrivals. "I'm sorry we woke you." Ning Qinghe sat up and rubbed her eyes. "It's fine. Have you finished work?" Chen Yan nodded. Xian, Zhou Wenmei, and Li Zhaodi also roused from sleep. Only Jiang Runin remained under her quilt, motionless. No one bothered her. Looking at everyone awake, Chen Yan suggested, since we're all here, let's properly introduce ourselves. She spoke first. I'm Chen Yan. I've been working in the countryside for 8 years. A slender young woman with twin braids said, I'm Zhao Zhifeng. I've been here 5 years. The last woman, tall with short bobbed hair, added, I'm Wang Xiaoying. I arrived 3 years ago. After the veteran educated youths finished introducing themselves, the newcomers took their turns. I'm Ning Qinghe. Su Yan. Zhou Wenmei and Li Zhaodi also stated their names. The group was now formally acquainted. The veteran educated youths glanced toward the far end of the bunk where Jiang Runin still lay in bed. Seeing she made no effort to greet anyone, they said nothing and turned to tidy their belongings. Ning Qinghe and the others rose to make their beds. Towards evening, the veteran educated youth each contributed a portion of their grain rations to prepare a simple meal laid out in the main dining hall. Everyone gathered around the table for an informal welcome dinner for the newly arrived educated youth. Zhou Weigua, the person in charge of the educated youth quarters, spoke first. This meal is specially prepared to welcome our new comrades. It is fate that brings us together here from all corners of the country. Let us each briefly introduce ourselves so we may know one another. The 4 male veteran educated youth introduced themselves one after another, Chen Weidong, Wang Jieshi, Zhao Dachuan, and Li Xiangdong, all of whom had been in the countryside for many years. The female educated youth also reintroduced themselves. Once all the veteran educated youth had spoken, it was time for the newcomers to take turns. When Ning Qinghe and Xia Li stood up to introduce themselves, every gaze lingered on them a little longer. Among the female educated youth, Ning Qinghe possessed the most striking looks. Among the men, Xia Li stood tall, around 185 centimeters, with distinct facial features. He carried a cold, distant aura. The veteran female educated youth blushed as they looked at Xia Li. The veteran male educated youth stared at Ning Qinghe, captivated by her beauty. It had been a long time since the youth quarters had welcomed newcomers with such outstanding appearances. The food on the table was plain, coarse grains and stir-fried wild vegetables, supplemented by 2 plates of scrambled eggs made from supplies everyone had pooled together. Jiang Runin glanced at the modest spread, her face filled with disdain. You call this a feast of welcome? There isn't even a scrap of meat. Her words cast a heavy pall over all the veteran educated youth. Life in the countryside was grueling. Able-bodied male villagers could earn 10 work points for a full day's labor. Strong male educated youth could gain 8 or 9 work points at most, while women generally earned only 6. The grain exchanged for 6 work points at years and barely kept hunger at bay. Those with weaker constitutions often could not even earn enough grain to repay advances, leaving them perpetually short of food. Grain and supplies were incredibly precious in these times, and it had been months since any of them had tasted meat. Jiang Runin's comment came across as open mockery of the veterans' difficult circumstances, deeply wounding them. The atmosphere turned stifling in an instant. Gu Yan sensed the tension and quickly tugged at Jiang Runin's sleeve. Be quiet. Don't speak without thinking. He turned to the veteran educated youth and apologized. I'm sorry. My friend speaks her mind without filtering her words. She means no harm. Please do not take offense. Zhou Weigua, as the group leader, stepped forward to ease the awkwardness. It's quite all right. We are all educated youth sent down to the countryside. Mutual aid is what we owe each other. Let us eat. Only then did everyone pick up their chopsticks. The veteran educated youth ate at a frantic pace, shoveling food into their mouths ravenously. Ning Qinghe had just picked up a chopstick full of wild vegetables and turned her head, when the plate of greens was already empty. She exchanged a glance with Su Yan and silently set down her chopsticks. In mere moments, every trace of coarse grain, wild vegetables, and eggs vanished from the table. The new educated youth watched in stunned silence. Zhou Weigua smiled and said, You are unused to this for now. You will understand after some time here. Grain is scarce in the countryside. Having food to eat is already a blessing. After dinner, Zhou Weigua continued speaking. The production brigade has taken pity on you newcomers, weary from your journey, and granted everyone a day of rest. Tomorrow you may travel to the town to purchase daily necessities. An ox cart ferries passengers from the village entrance, but fares must be paid. Anyone unwilling to spend money will have to walk. The journey to town on foot takes no less than 2 hours each way. The day after tomorrow, everyone begins formal field labor to earn work points. The brigade's official working hours are 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 6. All other hours are free time. The specific farm work, assigned plots, and labor tasks will be allocated by the brigade leader and cadres. Every educated youth working in the fields will be paired with experienced local villagers to guide them. The entire brigade is granted only one rest day each month, free from labor duties. After outlining all the rules regarding work hours, work points, and daily schedules, Zhou Weigua told everyone to wash up and rest. The group dispersed, returning to their rooms to settle in. Lying on her bed, Ning Qinghe turned matters over in her mind. It was 1973. For years remained before the college entrance examination would be reinstated. She would have to stay in the countryside for another 4 years. The youth quarters were crowded, and many eyes watched every movement. Her interspatial storage held abundant provisions, yet she dared not make use of them here. The slightest indulgence in nicer food would attract unwanted attention, making daily life difficult. If she wanted to live comfortably and without disturbance in the years ahead, she needed to find a way to move out of the communal youth quarters and live alone. Ning Qinghe made up her mind. Tomorrow she would travel to town with the others to buy supplies, to avoid standing out and arousing suspicion. Once she settled in properly, she would seek out the brigade leader. She planned to ask whether there were vacant houses available in the village, or if educated youth were permitted to build their own small dwelling. Ning Qinghe woke very early the next morning. She had not roused naturally. Constant commotion throughout the night in the youth quarters had robbed her of rest. Someone on the shared bunk ground their teeth, another mumbled in their sleep, and a third tossed and turned, flailing their limbs. The intermittent noise had kept her awake all night. She arose with dark shadows beneath her eyes, drained and irritable. Su Yan woke and noticed Ning Qinghe's haggard look. "Qinghe, are you feeling unwell?" Ning Qinghe shook her head. "I'm fine. I just couldn't sleep properly." Her resolve to move into private accommodation strengthened. Living long-term in this noisy, crowded quarters would either wear her down completely or spark constant conflicts with her roommates. The 4 girls tidied themselves and made travel plans. Ning Qinghe, Su Yan, Zhou Wenmei, and Li Zhaodi decided to head to town together to buy daily necessities. Jiang Runan had vanished early that morning, and the others paid her no mind as they set off toward the village entrance. They remembered Zhou Weigua mentioning the ox cart service to town. When they reached the entrance, they saw many villagers already seated on the cart. Each of the 4 girls paid 10 cents and climbed aboard the ox cart bound for town. The cart driver was an elderly army veteran named Old Zhang, known to all the villagers. He had sustained leg injuries during his military service, leaving him with a permanent limp, so the brigade assigned him to drive the ox cart. Numerous village aunties rode alongside them. As soon as Ning Qinghe and her companions sat down, the women began openly observing the 4 young women. Word had spread through the village the previous day that several beautiful new female educated youth had arrived. One auntie spoke up. "City-educated youth truly are different. Not only are they pretty, their skin is so soft it looks ready to bruise." Another replied, "They don't labor beneath the wind and sun in the city, so of course they stay fair. After a spell working the farmland, they'll look just like us." The surrounding villagers laughed at her words. Ning Qinghe and the others heard every comment but did not take offense. Villagers in the countryside spoke plainly, and this was simply their way. At that moment, an auntie fixed her gaze on Ning Qinghe. "Girl, what's your name?" Ning Qinghe had noticed this woman staring intently at her ever since she boarded the cart. Her scrutiny was unreserved. Not knowing who the woman was or why she watched her so closely, she replied politely. "Auntie, my name is Ning Qinghe." The auntie pressed on with her questions. "Have you got a sweetheart?" Ning Qinghe shook her head. "No." The auntie broke into a smile at once. "You have such a fine appearance, and you are an educated youth. You'd make a perfect match for my son. He's around your age. I should arrange for you two to meet." Before Ning Qinghe could respond, another auntie cut in sharply. "Qian Suilan, don't go meddling in other people's lives. You know full well what your son is like, lazy and plain-looking. This young lady is a cultured, attractive city-educated youth. Why would she take an interest in him?" Stung by the criticism of her son, Qian Suilan flew into a temper. "Lu Hohot, no one asked for your opinion on my boy. I think Ning Qinghe would make an excellent daughter-in-law. I wouldn't even consider ordinary village girls for him." The 2 aunties argued back and forth right there on the cart. Ning Qinghe spoke up to calm them. Please stop quarreling, aunties. When I left the city, my father told me I am still too young to think about marriage. I appreciate your kindness, but your son and I would not be a good match. Qian Suilan's face darkened at the straightforward refusal. She had thought the educated youth were soft and used to hard labor, yet this girl dared to turn her son down. She had only tried to arrange the match because her son admired pretty young women, and Ning Qinghe was the most striking among all the new educated youth. She had not expected to be rejected. She waited quietly, thinking that once Ning Qinghe struggled through hunger and exhausting farm labor, she would come begging for help. Many educated youth arrived full of pride, dismissing country folk, yet once hardship set in, they ended up marrying local villagers. Ning Qinghe had no idea what Qian Suilan was thinking. She turned to Lu Hohat, who had spoken in her defense, and thanked her politely. Thank you, Auntie. Lu Hohat waved off her gratitude. It's nothing. I can't stand seeing her take advantage of newcomers who don't know the ways of the village. Her son is notorious around the brigade, idle and overly fond of female company. You ought to keep your distance from him. Host, this Qian Suilan's son is the man Jiang Runin married in the original timeline. Be careful around this family. None of them are trustworthy. Understood. Ning Qinghe resolved to guard against them. The ox cart jolted along, carrying everyone slowly toward town. Zhou Wenmei and Li Zhaodi planned to shop for daily goods at the supply and marketing cooperative. Su Yan intended to telephone her family at the post office to report her safe arrival, while Ning Qinghe planned to collect a parcel. The group agreed to split up once they reached town. Su Yan and Ning Qinghe walked side by side to the post office entrance. Qinghe, go collect your parcel. I'll queue to make the call, Su Yan said. Ning Qinghe nodded. Su Yan lined up at the telephone counter. Calls were expensive in this era, so people kept conversations brief, and the queue moved quickly. Soon it was her turn. She dialed the office of the cotton mill director. Su Zhigua answered. Su Yan told him she had safely reached the educated youth quarters and that she was faring well. Su Zhigua offered a few simple reminders before hanging up. Meanwhile, Ning Qinghe did not head straight for the parcel collection window. She pretended to walk toward the collection area, then slipped into an empty side alley beside the post office. Once she confirmed no one was watching, she retrieved a pre-prepared parcel from her spatial storage and carried it in her hands. After that, she waited for Su Yan at the post office gates. When Su Yan emerged and saw the parcel in Ning Qinghe's grasp, she did not suspect anything amiss. The two carried the parcel back to the ox cart, set it aboard, greeted old Zhang, and headed for the state-run restaurant. They had barely eaten the previous evening and hoped to enjoy a proper meal to lift their spirits. They entered the restaurant and ordered braised pork and noodles. They had only just begun their meal when Guyan and Jiang Runin walked into the restaurant. Jiang Runin glanced at Ning Qinghe and Su Yan, but said nothing, walking straight to the ordering counter. Guyan nodded slightly in greeting, and the two young women nodded back before continuing. Guyan and Jiang Runin placed their order and took seats not far away. As soon as they sat down, Jiang Runin began to complain. Guyan, those youth quarters are unbearable. The living conditions are terrible, and the food is awful. I don't think I can endure this another day. Guyan comforted her gently as he always did. Runin, there is little we can do. Country life is simply like this. I have asked my parents to do everything they can to arrange for us to return to the city as soon as possible. Jiang Runin knew her own parents had been sent down, leaving her reliant on the Gu family. No matter how difficult things became, she had to persist. At least Guyan was with her. As long as he stayed by her side, his parents would not abandon them. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan paid no heed to their conversation and continued eating. At that moment, chatter from a group of young women drifted in from the restaurant doorway. Ning Qinghe lifted her eyes toward the entrance. A crowd of local town girls stood outside, looking toward one spot. Following their line of sight, she saw Xia Li standing at the restaurant door talking with another man. The girls whispered among themselves. That young man is incredibly handsome, said one girl wearing a blue work uniform. I've never seen anyone so good looking in town before. I wonder where he's from, and if he has a partner, said another girl in a white Dakron shirt. The young women nudged one another, yet none dared step forward. Eventually, one girl summoned her courage and walked over to speak to Xia Li. No one heard what Xia Li said, but the girl soon hurried back to her friends, eyes glistening with tears, leaning against her companions and weeping softly. Her friends crowded around to ask what had happened, but she shook her head and refused to speak. Ning Qinghe watched the scene and thought to herself that Xia Li drew female attention wherever he went. The young girl had only worked up the courage to speak to him, yet he had left her in tears. She knew she could never tolerate such a cold temperament. After finishing their meal, Ning Qinghe and Su Yan left the restaurant and headed for the supply and marketing cooperative. The town cooperative was smaller than those in Shanghai, with a limited range of goods, stocking only basic daily necessities. Su Yan bought an enamel basin, a box of vanishing cream, a tin of clam oil, and a packet of pastries. Ning Qinghe looked over the shelves. Her interspatial storage held all the supplies she needed, so she decided not to buy anything. They wandered through the cooperative briefly, confirmed there was nothing they required, and left. They returned to the ox cart, where most of the villagers who had gone shopping were already waiting. Jiang Runan and Gu Yan arrived back at the same time. With everyone assembled, old Zhang cracked the whip and steered the ox cart back toward the village. Along the way, village aunties kept glancing at Gu Yan, making him feel uneasy. One robust woman around 50 years old spoke to him. "Young man, you have such a fine bearing. City-educated youth are truly different, your skin far fairer than local village lads. I have a daughter who is hardworking and pleasant. Let me arrange for you two to meet." At these words, Jiang Runan clenched her sleeves tightly. Gu Yan glanced sideways at Jiang Runan. Seeing her silent and unresponsive, a flicker of disappointment stirred in his chest. He turned back to the woman. "Thank you for your kind offer, Auntie, but I already have someone I care for." As he spoke, his gaze settled once more on Jiang Runan, yet her expression remained impassive. Gu Yan's disappointment deepened. No one else brought up matchmaking on the ride back. One auntie glanced at the large parcel at Ning Qinghe's feet and struck up conversation. "Girl, did your family send you that parcel?" Ning Qinghe nodded. "Yes. They mailed my luggage ahead, so I wouldn't have to carry everything on the journey to the countryside." The auntie curled her lip. "You city folk live comfortably. Mailing a parcel costs a fortune." Ning Qinghe did not reply. Undeterred, the woman pressed further. "That parcel looks quite large. It must be full of things." Ning Qinghe turned her head away and stayed silent. The auntie grew annoyed. "What rude behavior. I'm speaking to you, why won't you answer?" Another woman cut her off at once. "Ma Dajiao, what she keeps in her parcel is none of your business. Why do you keep pestering her? Could it be you hope to get your hands on her belongings?" The inquisitive woman was named Ma Dajiao, known for her large feet. Her intentions laid bare, her face turned ugly. "I was merely curious, that's all. I have no interest in her things." Amid the constant chatter, the ox cart trundled back to the village and halted at the entrance. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan climbed down. Su Yan reached out to help carry Ning Qinghe's parcel, but Ning Qinghe raised a hand to stop her. "No need, I can manage." Before the watching villagers' astonished eyes, she lifted the heavy parcel effortlessly with one hand. The aunties and women stared in shock. Ning Qinghe appeared slender and delicate, yet she possessed surprising strength. Even many grown village men would struggle to lift such a weight with a single hand. All eyes fixed on her in surprise. Ning Qinghe paid them no mind and walked straight toward the educated youth quarters with the parcel. Back at the quarters, she did not unpack the parcel immediately. Instead, she retrieved a packet of crisp peach cakes, milk candies, and Dakianmin cigarettes from her trunk. She told Su Yan she was heading out and set off for the brigade leader's home. Outside, she spotted a village child and gave him a fruit candy in exchange for directions to the brigade leader's house. Carrying her gifts, Ning Qinghe found the residence. Lin Aigua had just returned from work and was washing his face in the courtyard when she arrived. Ning Qinghe knocked on the gate. He looked up and waved her inside. At that moment, brigade leader's wife Lu Hohot stepped out and smiled. "It's Ning Jiqing." Ning Qinghe recognized her as the auntie who had defended her on the ox cart that morning. She stepped forward and held out the peach cakes, milk candies, and cigarettes. "Auntie, please accept these small gifts." Lu Hohot quickly declined. "You shouldn't have brought anything." Ning Qinghe insisted. "They are just simple snacks, nothing valuable. I have come to discuss a matter with Uncle Lin." Lin Aigua finished washing up, sat down in the courtyard and gestured for Ning Qinghe to take a seat. She stated her purpose directly. "Uncle Lin, I wonder if there are any vacant houses in the village available for rent. If not, I hope to fund the construction of a small cottage for myself. The youth quarters are far too crowded. I suffer from insomnia. The slightest noise keeps me awake." Last night's commotion left me exhausted, and I fear I will not be able to keep up with farm labor, so I came to ask for your help. Lin Igua understood her predicament. It was simply a housing issue. He thought for a moment and replied. There are empty houses in the village, but they are dilapidated, abandoned for years. Living in them would be worse than building a new dwelling. Ning Qinghe responded immediately. In that case, Uncle Lin, could you help arrange construction? I will cover all costs. Lin Igua warned her earnestly. You must think carefully. Educated youth may build houses on village land and occupy them, but if you return to the city one day, the property will revert to the production brigade. Ning Qinghe nodded. I am aware of this rule. Lin Igua asked again. What kind of house do you plan to build? After a moment's thought, Ning Qinghe replied. 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, a latrine, plus a small courtyard. It only needs to be spacious enough for me to live alone. Lin Igua quickly tallied up the labor and material costs in his head. It will cost roughly 100 yuan to build such a small courtyard. Ning Qinghe thought the price was reasonable and acceptable. Then I will trouble Uncle Captain to make the arrangements for me. Lin Igua gave his assent. The autumn harvest is right around the corner. Every member of the production team has to head into the fields for urgent farm work, leaving no extra manpower available. Construction can only begin once the autumn harvest work is finished. Ning Qinghe raised no objections. That is fine. The harvest takes priority. Building the house can wait until you are all free from farm duties. Seeing that the brigade leader and his wife needed to rest, Ning Qinghe took her leave and walked back to the dormitory. Upon returning, Ning Qinghe pulled Su Yan aside privately. She told Su Yan everything about applying to the brigade leader for a private courtyard and asked if Su Yan also intended to build separate housing for herself. Su Yan had long been fed up with the collective dormitory. She nodded firmly the moment she heard the news. I want one too. Ning Qinghe said, I have already settled with the captain that construction will start after the harvest. When the time comes, just go speak to him and have your courtyard built right next to mine. Su Yan agreed without the slightest hesitation. The two talked in low voices, making no real effort to hide their conversation from others. Hidden in the shadowed corner by the courtyard wall was a third person eavesdropping on their exchange. Ning Qinghe caught a glimpse of a fabric hem out of the corner of her eye, matching the clothes Jiang Wannan was wearing. She paid it no mind. Building a private residence was hardly a secret matter. Word would spread across the village after harvest anyway. Hidden in the shadows, Jiang Wannan heard every single word of their conversation clearly. Learning that an independent courtyard only cost 100 yuan stirred an immediate idea in her mind. She had ample savings and detested the shabby collective quarters deeply. A private courtyard would grant her peace and privacy, freeing her from the discomfort of crowded shared living, which suited her perfectly. Jiang Wannan secretly resolved her course of action. Once the autumn harvest concluded, she would also apply for a private house. At dinner time, Qin Yan laid out the dining regulations for all the educated youths residing in the dormitory. The educated youth dormitory operated a collective communal kitchen. Female educated youths took turns cooking meals, while male youths fetched water and chopped firewood. Any new educated youth joining the communal meals had to hand over their weekly grain rations to the dormitory for unified management and distribution, as well as take their turn on cooking duty alongside everyone else. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan conferred quietly with one another. Joining the collective kitchen meant hot meals would be ready immediately after finishing field work, which was certainly convenient. Yet the food quality left much to be desired, as they had witnessed with the previous day's plain meal. In the end, the two decided against joining the collective kitchen and planned to prepare their own meals separately. Qin Yan voiced no opposition to their decision. Most newly arrived educated youths chose to cook for themselves at first. Over time, the hassle of individual food preparation would drive nearly everyone back to the communal dining setup. Collective cooking offered great convenience. Those assigned cooking duty could finish work early, while the rest would have hot food waiting for them. At this moment, upon hearing Ning Qinghe and Su Yan opting out of group dining, Jiang Wannan spoke up at once. I will not join the communal kitchen either. Gu Yan and I will prepare our own food separately. Gu Yan silently went along with her decision. Xia Li, who rarely spoke a word, followed suit. Fong Mo and I will also cook our own meals. The majority of the new educated youths chose independent cooking, and the veteran youths did not attempt to stop them. Seeing this unfold, Zhou Wei spoke out. You are free to cook for yourselves if you wish. However, all the pots, pans, and tableware in the dormitory were purchased collectively by us veteran youths with our own money and industrial coupons. You must source your own supplies. Jiang Wannan felt a surge of irritation at this ruling. In her opinion, they all lived under the same roof. Shared kitchenware hardly warranted such strict divisions, and borrowing a few items should not be treated as such an impolite act. You are being far too rigid about this. We are only declining to eat together, not abandoning the dormitory entirely. We are all part of this educated youth group. What harm is there in borrowing a few pots and pans? There is no need for such cold distance between us. Wang Xiaoying, one of the veteran educated youths, immediately retorted sharply. We veteran youths pooled our resources to buy these kitchen supplies ourselves. That large iron wok, in particular, could only be bought with hard-to-earn industrial coupons. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to save up those coupons in this era? If you new arrivals damage the equipment through careless use, who will take responsibility for the replacements? Jiang Wannan was left without a single retort. She knew full well how scarce industrial coupons were during this period. She turned to look at Guyen for support. Guyen leaned in to soothe her in a low voice. Do not worry. I have connections to get hold of an iron wok and kitchen tools. We can gather our own set, and cooking separately will work just as well for us. Ning Qinghe listened to their exchange with complete indifference. Her spatial storage held a full set of kitchenware and abundant daily provisions. Being naturally neat and particular about hygiene, she had always felt uncomfortable eating from shared pots or using tableware previously handled by others. She was actually relieved to avoid the collective dining arrangement entirely. And so the dining arrangements were finalized. Among the new educated youths, only Zhou Wenmei and Li Zhaodi chose to take part in the collective kitchen meals. Everyone turned in early to rest ahead of field work the next morning. When the first work bell rang at dawn the following day, Ning Qinghe woke up right on schedule. She pulled labor protection gloves, canvas liberation shoes, long-sleeved tops, and long trousers out of her luggage and changed into them. She put on a straw sun hat and tied a silk scarf around the hat's brim to fully shield her face. Watching Ning Qinghe's heavily covered attire, Suyen could not help laughing. Qinghe, is it really necessary to dress so thoroughly? Ning Qinghe shot Suyen a glance. You do not understand. This is our first day working the fields, and we do not yet know what labor tasks we will be assigned. It is always wise to prepare in advance. This gear protects our skin and prevents painful sunburns. Suyen acknowledged the logic in her words. She had not prepared any sun protection items of her own, and worry flickered across her face. Ning Qinghe noticed her troubled expression. The two shared a close bond, and she could not bear to watch Suyen get badly sunburnt and darkened by harsh sunlight. Every young woman cared about maintaining her appearance. Ning Qinghe retrieved an identical set of supplies, straw hat, silk scarf, labor gloves, and canvas shoes, and handed everything over to Suyen. Overjoyed, Suyen stepped forward to embrace Ning Qinghe and pressed a light kiss to her cheek. You're the kindest person I know, Qinghe. The luckiest thing that has ever happened to me is coming down to the countryside alongside you. I truly would not know how to cope with all of this without you by my side. Ning Qinghe pried her friend away gently. Speak properly and refrain from such casual physical affection, or others may misinterpret our relationship. Suyen stuck out her tongue and dressed herself following Ning Qinghe's example, covering her skin completely against the sun. The other educated youths watched their prepared appearance without comment. Chen Yan, one of the veteran youths, looked on with quiet approval. She and the other veteran girls had been 17 or 18 years old with delicate fair skin upon first arriving in the countryside. Years of unprotected outdoor field work under wind and sun had left their faces covered in sunspots and their complexion sallow, stripping away their fresh radiance. They would never have let their skin become so rough if they had known to take proper protective measures back then. Ning Qinghe and Suyen paid no mind to the surrounding stares. Each ate 2 pieces of crisp peach pastry to settle their stomachs before gathering their things and heading out. All residents of the production team were required to assemble at the village square at the entrance, where the brigade leader would assign the day's labor duties collectively. Suyen and Ning Qinghe walked side by side toward the assembly point. Once most villagers and youths had gathered, the brigade leader began calling the roll. When he reached the list of educated youths, Jiang Wannan was nowhere to be seen. The brigade leader called out, "Where is Jiang Wannan?" Chen Yan replied, "We knocked on her door to wake her for morning work." The brigade leader's expression darkened as he prepared to reprimand her for tardiness. It was only then that Jiang Wannan sauntered over slowly. Dressed for field labor, she had instead put on a floral-collared shirt and black tailored trousers, styled herself neatly and delicately. Her outfit looked far more fitting for a casual stroll through town than grueling farm labor work. Every pair of eyes fixed themselves on her figure. A surge of self-satisfaction swelled within Jiang Wannan. She had seen Ning Qinghe and Su Yan's plain, practical protective outfits earlier and thought them plain and unattractive. She refused to dress in such drab clothing and was determined to appear polished and eye-catching for everyone present. She had taken ample time to doll herself up only after Ning Qinghe and Su Yan had left the dormitory. Her goal was to dazzle the crowd and draw Xia Li's attention toward herself. Jiang Wannan reveled in the focused gazes directed her way. What she failed to realize was that everyone was looking at her with the bemused pity reserved for someone acting foolishly out of touch with their surroundings. The brigade leader shook his head helplessly at her inappropriate clothing choice. He was about to issue a verbal reprimand, but quickly reconsidered that hands-on experience would teach her a far more effective lesson than any scolding ever could. The brigade leader proceeded to distribute the day's farm work assignments. As newly arrived laborers, the fresh, educated youths were paired with local villagers who would guide them. Ning Qinghe was placed in the same work group as Lu Hohat, the brigade leader's wife. Ning Qinghe was glad for the arrangement. Aunt Hohat had been the first person to show her kindness after she arrived in the village, and she was happy to work alongside her. Upon spotting Ning Qinghe, Lu Hohat smiled warmly. "Follow along with me for your work today, young Ning. I will walk you through anything you do not know how to do." Ning Qinghe nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Auntie." Taking advantage of a moment when no one was watching, she slipped several White Rabbit creamy candies and a hard-boiled egg into Lu Hohat's hand. Lu Hohat immediately tried to decline the gifts. "I cannot accept these, child. You ought to keep them for yourself." Ning Qinghe insisted gently. "They are just a few simple treats. I have already eaten my fill, so please take them." Unable to turn down her earnest gesture, Lu Hohat accepted the items. Her fondness for Ning Qinghe deepened instantly. The young woman was generous, sensible, genuine, and never overly delicate about rural hardships. With work duties assigned, everyone collected their farm tools and headed into the farmlands to begin labor. Lu Hohat had assumed that as a city youth with no prior farm experience, Ning Qinghe would struggle to pick up the weeding and rice tidying techniques quickly. She patiently demonstrated the proper motions once, and Ning Qinghe picked up the skills instantly, moving with smooth, efficient movements. She finished the bulk of her assigned work in a short span of time. The workpoint recorder patrolling the fields was thoroughly impressed by Ning Qinghe's swift progress. Ning Qinghe asked the recorder if she would be permitted to rest for the afternoon should she finish her full daily quota before midday. Thanks to a passive physical strength boost she possessed alongside her sharp learning ability, Ning Qinghe matched or even outperformed the village women who had spent decades working farmland. Even Lu Hohat was stunned to witness such brisk productivity from a slender teenage girl from the city. The village women beside her, accustomed to years of farm labor, were unwilling to be outdone by a newly arrived educated youth and redoubled their own efforts, driving up their overall work efficiency considerably. Elsewhere in the fields, Jiang Wannan was grouped with Qian Suifan. Observing Jiang Wannan's refined appearance, Qian Suifan immediately guessed the young woman came from a wealthy urban household. Though not as strikingly beautiful as Ning Qinghe, Jiang Wannan stood out well against the village girls and other new educated youths, and Qian Suifan secretly considered her a suitable match for her son. Jiang Wannan remained completely unaware that she had been sized up as a potential daughter-in-law. Tasked with pulling weeds under Qian Suifan's supervision, she endured constant personal questions about her family background under the guise of receiving work guidance. Growing increasingly irritated with the prying inquiries, Jiang Wannan retreated to a separate patch of weeds to work alone. She had imagined weeding to be simple work, yet after only a short time bent over the ground, sharp grass blades sliced countless tiny wounds across her palms, making her inhale sharply from the stinging pain. Her carefully arranged clothes were coated in mud and tangled weeds from field labor, and a thorny branch tore a noticeable rip in her beloved floral shirt. The sun climbed higher, bringing sweltering heat and thirst. Her fair cheeks flushed bright red under unfiltered sunlight. Staring at her damaged shirt and the stinging wounds covering her hands, Jiang Wannan sank onto the field ridge and shed frustrated tears. The workpoint recorder arrived to check her progress and noticed she had barely completed a third of her required workload. "You must finish your assigned tasks today. Unfinished work means mandatory overtime, and you will receive 0 work points for the day if you fail to meet your quota. Jiang Wannan scanned the surrounding fields frantically, hoping to spot Guyen for assistance, yet he was nowhere to be found within sight. She wiped away her tears and dragged herself back to the weeds to continue working through quiet sobs. Guyen fared little better than Jiang Wannan. Both had grown up in privileged urban compounds with 0 exposure to manual farm labor. On their first official workday, Guyen struggled clumsily to barely finish his own assigned labor and had no spare capacity to help Jiang Wannan in the slightest. When the workday ended at noon, all laborers trekked back toward the village. Jiang Wannan had only managed to finish half of her assigned field work. Having agreed to cook independently rather than join the veteran youth's communal meals, the pair had not yet purchased an iron wok for their own use. Guyen split a pack of egg cakes he had bought in town earlier with Jiang Wannan for their midday meal. Mid-bite, Jiang Wannan held up her scraped, sore hands toward Guyen with tear-streaked cheeks. Guyen, my hands hurt terribly. Guyen felt deep sympathy for her plight yet had no practical solution to offer. Compulsory rural labor was non-negotiable for educated youths. Refusing farm work would lead to accusations of harboring bourgeois attitudes, bringing far worse trouble down upon them both. After a moment of thought, Guyen thought of Ning Qinghe and Su Yan's protective gear. You should wear work gloves while laboring in the afternoon like Ning Qinghe and Su Yan do. It will stop your hands from getting cut open. Jiang Wannan had hoped Guyen would volunteer to complete her work for her, and his practical suggestion left her feeling disappointed. Deep down she understood Guyen could barely manage his own workload, leaving him no time to assist her. Still, the idea of wearing gloves appealed to her, though she had not packed any labor protection supplies when leaving the city. She had visited the supply and marketing cooperative the previous day, but had only stocked up on snacks, never thinking to buy straw hats or work gloves for field labor. Spotting the pair of labor gloves resting beside Guyen, she spoke to him in a soft, pleading tone. But, Ayen, I do not own any gloves at all. Watching her reddened, tearful eyes, Guyen hesitated briefly before handing his own labor protection gloves over to her. You can wear mine for the afternoon shift. Jiang Wannan slipped the gloves on happily, paying no thought to how Guyen would manage field work without any hand protection of his own. Thank you so much, Guyen, you are the best. Seeing her brightened expression, Guyen felt all his minor hardships were worthwhile. With the gloves shielding her hands, Jiang Wannan avoided fresh cuts during the afternoon labor. She still worked slowly, but her progress improved marginally compared to the morning. Deprived of gloves, Guyen's palms were scored with countless new gashes from weeds and branches, forcing him to endure the sharp discomfort through gritted teeth to finish his duties. Compared to everyone else's exhausting labor, Ning Qinghe had an unusually relaxed day. She wrapped up her full work quota well before noon and received official approval from the recorder to take the entire afternoon off from field duties. The village women all praised her efficient work pace, commenting that she outmatched many long-term local farmers. Ning Qinghe planned to take advantage of her free afternoon to explore the mountain forest behind the village. She had read countless time-travel rural novels set in Heilongjiang province, a region famed for its abundant natural resources. In these stories, new arrivals always prioritized visiting supply cooperatives, black markets, scrap salvage stations, and mountain woodlands to seek valuable resources. She had already explored the local black market and supply cooperative, so she intended to comb through the mountain woods this afternoon, with plans to browse the scrap salvage station later in hopes of finding overlooked valuable items. When Ning Qinghe reached the mountain foothills, she spotted several village children gathering pigweed for livestock feed, including Niuhua, the village head's young grandson. Niuhua grew shy upon seeing Ning Qinghe. He had noticed the exceptionally pretty young educated youth during their previous encounter. Ning Qinghe waved him over, and the boy stepped forward cautiously. What can I do for you, pretty sister? Ning Qinghe smiled warmly at the nickname, her eyes crinkling with amusement, leaving Niuhua staring blankly in admiration. Here, this is for you. She pulled several White Rabbit creamy candies from her pocket and held them out to him, yet the boy hesitated to take the treats. Ning Qinghe ruffled his hair gently with a soft smile. It is all right, you may have them. Niuhua accepted the candies and studied Ning Qinghe carefully. Unlike the other educated youths who looked upon village children with obvious disdain, this gentle young woman treated him with kindness. Are you heading up into the mountains, pretty sister? Ning Qinghe nodded. I am going to collect some firewood up the mountain. Please do not wander deep into the inner forest. The mountains are dangerous past the outer trails. Ning Qinghe smiled and ruffled his hair once more in gratitude for the warning before heading along the mountain path inward. Her trip into the mountains served two purposes. She hoped to chance upon edible wild produce while gathering firewood for her private cooking needs. She and Su Yan were preparing their own meals now, and though her spatial storage contained a functional iron wok, she had no stockpile of firewood. Using the firewood collected by the veteran-educated youths at the dormitory would inevitably breed resentment among the older residents. Ning Qinghe walked slowly along the trail, tossing any dry fallen branches she spotted directly into her spatial storage to retrieve once she descended the mountain. She wandered onward collecting firewood until she unknowingly reached the mountainside halfway up the slope. Standing at the elevated vantage point, she overlooked the village spread out far below. Peace hung heavy over the quiet settlement, with thin cooking smoke curling upward from every household in a calm, tranquil scene. The serene view settled a quiet peace over Ning Qinghe's heart. She had spent her previous life amid the constant bustle and relentless pressure of modern city life. This simple agrarian rhythm of rising with the sun and resting at dusk was a rare, precious peace. Pulling her gaze away from the village scenery, she ventured deeper into the woodland. A wild hare suddenly darted out from the thick underbrush. Ning Qinghe's eyes lit up instantly, and she gave chase at once, mentally running through different recipes for cooked rabbit meat. She paid no mind to how far she had run, unwittingly crossing into the deeper, denser part of the mountain forest. Tall trees formed a thick overhead canopy that blocked most sunlight, casting the woodland interior into dim shadow. Mountain breezes drifted through the trees, carrying a cool chill against her skin. When the hare darted out into the open again, Ning Qinghe picked up a loose stone and hurled it with considerable force. The heavy stone struck the hare cleanly, knocking it unconscious on impact. Ning Qinghe stepped forward to pick up the creature and stowed it safely inside her spatial storage, ready to turn back toward the village. Just as she spun around to leave, muffled voices drifted out from deeper within the thick woods, their words indistinct from her current position. Ning Qinghe lightened her footsteps and crept cautiously toward the source of the sound. Two men stood talking hidden within the forest foliage, and she kept her distance to avoid being detected. Shadows obscured their features completely, but she could clearly make out their conversation. One man spoke first in a low voice. "Are you certain the item is hidden somewhere within this stretch of woodland?" The second man replied, "According to the intelligence we received, the object is concealed right here. Yet we have searched this area for days on end with no luck pinpointing its exact hiding spot." Listening to the two men's conversation, Ning Qinghe guessed they were searching for something. Once their talk ended, the two men glanced warily around their surroundings. Only after confirming the area was empty did they leave the forest one after another. Ning Qinghe waited until they were far away before stepping out from the trees and heading down the mountain along a different trail. She had just reached the foot of the hill when she ran into Xia Li, who was also walking downhill. Xia Li had an upright build with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. His facial features were sharp and well-defined, his eyes cold and deep, and his thin lips pressed into a tight line. He looked at Ning Qinghe with his usual blank, aloof expression. Xia Li had recognized Ning Qinghe the second time he saw her. She was the young woman who had tried to drown herself in Haisher all those years ago, whom he had pulled out of the river on a whim. He still remembered her striking looks clearly. Xia Li had always held disdain for people who discarded their own lives and lacked self-respect. That incident had left him with a poor first impression of Ning Qinghe. When Ning Qinghe had spoken to him voluntarily before, he assumed she was just like every other girl who deliberately sought his attention. That was why he had claimed not to know her and told her to stay away. Much to his surprise, Ning Qinghe had truly kept her distance afterward, treating him like a total stranger with cold indifference. Xia Li looked away and turned toward the educated youth compound. Ning Qinghe had no wish to provoke the cold-tempered Xia Li. She still vividly recalled his words, his rejection and warning to keep her distance. Maintaining a clear gap between them, she followed him from behind, and the two returned to the compound separately. The rest of the educated youth were still out working the fields, leaving only Xia Li and Ning Qinghe inside the compound grounds. Ning Qinghe walked into the female educated youth's dormitory. A short while later, she set up a small stove and an iron pot beneath the windowsill to cook her meal. She took pork out of her spatial storage. Using the small stove, she fried a plate of sliced pork, boiled a pot of 3, ingredient fresh soup, and steamed a pot of white rice. The rich aroma of the food drifted throughout the entire courtyard of the compound. The other educated youth caught the strong scent long before they walked back from work. Entering the yard, they saw Ning Qinghe had already prepared dinner. Su Yan hurried over and linked her arm through Ning Qinghe's. "Qinghe, you're the best. I get to eat a hot meal right after finishing work." Ning Qinghe smiled and tapped the tip of Su Yan's nose. "Go wash your hands and get ready to eat." The veteran educated youth standing nearby swallowed hard at the sight of the food Ning Qinghe had made. The fragrant, savory stir, fried pork and clear soup stood in stark contrast to the coarse grains everyone else relied on for sustenance. Though their mouths watered instinctively, each household cooked their own meals now, so none dared ask for a share of her food. For dinner, Ning Qinghe pulled out a camphor wood chest to use as a makeshift dining table. She and Su Yan sat in the courtyard eating off the chest. Ning Qinghe had just unlocked her cooking skill, and the fried pork she had prepared for the first time tasted wonderful. The pair ate heartily out in the yard. Inside the dorm rooms, the veteran educated youth chewed on rough sorghum buns while the constant waft of meat from outside made their plain food nearly impossible to swallow. Jiang Runin also caught the scent drifting through the yard. She had spent the entire day doing backbreaking farm labor, worn out to the bone and too exhausted to cook for herself. She had only eaten a small portion of egg cake with Guyen that morning, leaving her ravenous as the delicious smells filled the air. She marched straight over to where Ning Qinghe and Su Yan were seated. "Ning Qinghe, give me some of your food." Ning Qinghe raised a hand and pretended to clean out her ear. "What was that?" "I didn't hear you." Convinced Ning Qinghe had genuinely not heard her, Jiang Runin repeated her demand. "I said hand over some of your dinner." Ning Qinghe lifted her gaze to meet Jiang Runin's eyes. "If you're not feeling well mentally, go get checked at the clinic instead of throwing a fit here. I made this food with my own hands. Why would I give it to you?" Jiang Runin had not expected such a blunt retort. She lifted her chin defiantly. "I'll pay you for the food. Will that satisfy you?" Ning Qinghe refused outright. "I'm not selling." Infuriated by Ning Qinghe's attitude, Jiang Runin snapped back. "What right do you have to refuse?" Ning Qinghe's gaze turned icy cold. "This is my property. I can choose to sell it or refuse it freely. I have no intention of selling to you now, and there is nothing you can do about it." Jiang Runin seethed with anger. "I'm offering to buy your food out of kindness. Don't be so ungrateful." Su Yan grew furious hearing Jiang Runin speak so rudely to Ning Qinghe. She stood up and pointed squarely at Jiang Runin. "Qinghe spent time and effort making this meal. Why should she share it with you? Is it because you have no sense of shame or decency? If you're hungry, cook your own food. You have two working hands. Stop trying to take advantage of other people's hard work for free." Cornered by the two girls' rebuttals, Jiang Runin had no words left to fire back. She turned to Guyen standing nearby. "Guyen, look at how they're treating me." Guyen pressed his palm to his forehead, overcome with helplessness. He too craved the savory food on display. He had planned to approach Ning Qinghe privately later to buy a serving for himself, but Jiang Runin had marched over uninvited to demand food and escalated the confrontation to this tense standoff. There was no longer any way for him to broach the subject politely. Xia Li stood beneath a tree some distance away, witnessing the entire argument unfold. Seeing Guyen stay silent, Jiang Runin's frustration flared even hotter. She stamped her foot hard against the ground. "It's just a little food, there's no need to act so smug. I've tasted countless exquisite delicacies in my lifetime, dishes none of you could ever hope to sample." With that, Jiang Runin stormed off with a dark expression. Ding! Congratulations to the host for receiving rewards. 100 abalones, 100 Australian lobsters, 5 kilograms of crayfish, 10 live freshwater fish, 50 kilograms of pork, 50 kilograms of beef, 50 kilograms of chicken, plus a dream kitchen. Ning Qinghe grinned upon hearing the system notification. She had never imagined provoking Jiang Runin would trigger such generous rewards. For the sake of these prizes, she decided to let the woman's rude behavior slide for the time being. Several veteran-educated youth had been plotting ways to get free food from Ning Qinghe, but after watching Jiang Runin walk away empty-handed and humiliated, no one dared attempt to take advantage of her meals anymore. They resigned themselves to choking down their bland, scratchy grain buns. Her appetite ruined by the disturbance, Ning Qinghe only ate a few mouthfuls before setting down her chopsticks. Su Yan had labored nonstop all day and was famished. The meal Ning Qinghe prepared tasted incredibly delicious, and she finished a full bowl of rice without hesitation. Once dinner was finished, everyone tidied up briefly before returning to their beds to rest. A full day of grueling farm labor left every person drained, and they fell into deep sleep shortly after lying down. Lying with her eyes closed, Ning Qinghe communicated with the system through her consciousness. All the newly obtained rewards had been deposited safely within her spatial storage. Focusing on the newly unlocked dream kitchen inside her space, she directed a question to the system. What functions does the dream kitchen have? Host, the dream kitchen can be summoned or stored away at will using your mind. It comes fully equipped with all modern kitchen appliances including ovens and stoves, alongside an independent water, electricity, and gas supply. All food prepared inside the kitchen can be removed from the spatial storage and consumed normally in the outside world. After listening to the system's explanation, Ning Qinghe mentally inspected the dream kitchen in detail. She planned to place the kitchen inside her private courtyard once construction was complete, so she could prepare all kinds of food conveniently whenever she pleased. Weary from the day's exertions, Ning Qinghe drifted off to sleep soon after making this plan. Early the next morning, everyone rose on schedule to gather for field work. Having learned her lesson from the previous day, Jiang Runin changed into sturdy, dirt-resistant clothing. She no longer turned her nose up at straw hats and labor gloves, putting both on properly before joining the group heading to the threshing ground for assembly. The village captain stood at the front and addressed the crowd. The rice paddies had fully ripened, marking the official start of the village-wide autumn harvest starting that day. Everyone was required to complete their assigned workloads strictly, slacking off was forbidden, and leave would not be approved without legitimate emergency reasons. When the harvest officially began, Ning Qinghe continued working alongside Lu Hohat's work group. Lu Hohat patiently demonstrated the proper technique for cutting rice stalks with a sickle. Ning Qinghe's movements were clumsy at first, but she quickly picked up the method after a short period of practice, gradually increasing her cutting speed. The other educated youth slowly learned the harvesting process under the guidance of local villagers. Jiang Runin struggled constantly to master the correct cutting posture. Despite repeated demonstrations from Qian Suifan, she could not get the hang of it. In her flustered attempts, she accidentally sliced her finger open with the sickle. Qian Suifan grew irritated watching Jiang Runin's clumsy, delicate behavior. These city-born educated youth truly are fragile. They cannot even cut rice properly and bring no practical value whatsoever besides their looks. Qian Suifan had her own harvest quota to fulfill. Giving up on teaching the hopeless Jiang Runin, she focused entirely on her own farm work and left the girl to fend for herself. Abandoned by Qian Suifan, Jiang Runin was overwhelmed by hurt and grievance. She had been doted on by her parents her entire life and had never endured such harsh hardship before. For the first time, she felt an intense longing for home and wished she could leave this place immediately. Yet her parents had been sent down for labor re-education, leaving her with no home to return to. Overcome with sorrow at this realization, Jiang Runin burst into tears. The village captain passed by during his inspection and shook his head helplessly at the sight of her crying in the rice field. After crying for some time and noticing everyone else had made substantial progress on their harvest, Jiang Runin wiped her tears and picked up her sickle once more. Terrified of cutting herself again, she only gathered tiny handfuls of rice each time she swung the blade. While the other workers had finished harvesting most of their assigned plots, Jiang Runin had barely completed 1/3 of her workload. Li Zhaodi and Zhou Wenmei were both seasoned manual laborers. After learning from the villagers for a short while, they steadily grew proficient at the harvest work. Ning Qinghe's skills improved rapidly as she worked, and before long her harvesting speed matched Lu Hohat's entirely. Lu Hohat was increasingly satisfied with Ning Qinghe's quick learning ability and lack of complaints throughout the grueling work. The autumn harvest lasted more than 2 weeks before concluding. All harvested rice was transported to the threshing ground collectively for threshing and sun-drying. Once the grain was cleaned and processed, villagers delivered the mandatory grain tax to the commune in bulk. Any remaining grain was distributed to each household according to the work points they had accumulated. Ning Qinghe and the other educated youth had arrived in the countryside right as harvest season commenced. Every day after finishing field work, Ning Qinghe prepared varied nourishing meals to replenish her physical strength. She and Su Yan maintained healthy appearances, while the rest of the educated youth had visibly lost weight from the high-intensity farm labor. Jiang Runin and Gu Yan had even darkened significantly from constant sun exposure. Jiang Runin had gradually adapted to rural life over these weeks and was far less pampered than she had been upon first arriving in the village. A few days prior, Guyan had somehow obtained an iron cooking pot. He and Jiang Runin had begun cooking their own meals, following Ning Qinghe's example. Having grown up in privileged courtyard households, neither had any cooking experience. The food they managed to make was barely edible, plain and tasteless, nowhere near the flavor of the dishes Ning Qinghe cooked. Once the harvest wrapped up, the village captain granted everyone a 2-day break for much-needed rest. Ning Qinghe and Su Yan planned a trip into town. Su Yan headed for the post office to mail a letter home, while Ning Qinghe made her way to the scrap collection station she had been eager to visit. After asking several townsfolk for directions, Ning Qinghe finally located the municipal scrap depot. An elderly gatekeeper standing at the entrance spoke up when he saw her approaching. "Young lady, what brings you here?" Ning Qinghe smiled and handed the old man a cigarette. "Grandpa, I'm here to look for usable discarded items." The elderly man's mood brightened at the scent of tobacco. He waved his hand in dismissal. "Go on inside, but don't take anything that isn't scrap waste." "Thank you, sir." Ning Qinghe smiled at him and walked into the depot. The scrapyard spanned roughly half the size of a basketball court, piled high with all manner of items including old furniture, discarded newspapers, and outdated books. As Ning Qinghe stood unsure where to begin her search, the system's voice echoed in her mind. "Host, inside the hidden compartment of the drawer belonging to the old wooden desk directly to your front right lies a full set of jade, inlaid gold jewelry." Following the system's instructions, Ning Qinghe indeed found a complete jewelry set hidden within the drawer's secret partition, consisting of a bracelet, earrings, a necklace, and a ring. She stored the entire set into her spatial storage immediately. This was the true joy of treasure hunting. The unexpected delight of uncovering valuable treasures amid trash was incomparable. Ning Qinghe was thoroughly enjoying her scavenging when the system issued a warning. "Host, leave the premises quickly, or the gatekeeper will come to check on you." Before exiting the depot, Ning Qinghe gathered a stack of old newspapers and a set of high school textbooks for Chinese and mathematics to carry outward as a cover. The gatekeeper stared intently at her as she walked past, clearly checking to ensure she had not taken any prohibited valuables. Ning Qinghe handed him 2 more cigarettes with a cheerful grin, and the old man waved her through. She left the scrapyard, clutching the books in her hands. Once she reached a secluded empty alley, she placed the textbooks into her spatial storage. When she stepped back out onto the main path, she was holding a large chunk of pork in her grasp instead. Carrying the pork, she headed toward the ox cart pick-up point at the town entrance. Ning Qinghe arrived at the town gate to find Su Yan already waiting beside the ox cart. Her eyes lit up the moment she spotted the large cut of pork in Ning Qinghe's hands. "Qinghe, you managed to buy pork." Su Yan hurried forward and linked arms with Ning Qinghe, her tone warm and affectionate. Ning Qinghe nodded. "I got lucky today and picked up plenty of pork. I'll cook something delicious for us back at the compound." "You're such a good friend to me, Qinghe." Su Yan rested her head lightly on Ning Qinghe's shoulder. She believed she must have been extremely fortunate in her past life to cross paths with someone as kind as Ning Qinghe. Over the past months, she had shared meals with Ning Qinghe consistently. Ning Qinghe handled all the cooking work, while Su Yan took responsibility for washing the dishes afterward. She also regularly gave Ning Qinghe money for food ingredients. Even the closest of friends should not rely on another person's generosity for free meals without contributing their fair share. Meanwhile, Guyan and Jiang Runin had also come into town. Their first stop upon arriving was the state-run restaurant for a hearty proper meal. Although they cooked their own food now and ate better than the veteran-educated youth, their poor cooking skills meant their homemade meals were always bland and unsatisfying. After finishing their meal, Jiang Runin said she wanted to visit the supply and marketing cooperative, while Guyan headed for the post office to make a long-distance phone call. The two parted ways. Guyan dialed his family's number, and his mother's voice came through the receiver. "Xiaoyan, how are you holding up? Are you suffering out in the countryside?" "I'm fine, Mother, honestly. Don't lie to me. I know exactly how difficult this life is for you. You've never endured hardship a single day in your life, yet you insisted on signing up for the countryside re-education program the second Jiang Runin decided to go. Your father flew into a rage for days when he found out you'd run off without telling the family." Guyan felt a twinge of guilt hearing his mother's words. He had impulsively signed up for the program simply to keep Jiang Runan safe after learning she planned to leave for the countryside, hiding his decision from his entire family. I know I was wrong. Please apologize to father on my behalf. Gu Yan's mother softened her tone upon hearing her son's apology. Xiao Yan, Jiang Runan does not return your feelings. Why are you so stubbornly devoted to her? Gu Yan immediately jumped to Jiang Runan's defense the moment his mother mentioned her name. Runan is a good person. I chose to do all of this for her of my own free will. His mother sighed helplessly at his blind loyalty. The Gu family had long seen through the Jiang family's tactics of using Jiang Runan to curry favor with their household. It was true that Jiang Runan had once saved Gu Yan's life, yet the Gu family had already provided ample covert support and favors to the Jiang clan over the years. If Jiang Runan had truly held sincere affection for her son, she would not have opposed a marriage between them. His mother grieved for her son's wasted devotion and tried repeatedly to reason with him. Your father and elder brother have already begun making arrangements to secure your transfer back to the capital city at the earliest possible opportunity. A surge of excitement washed over Gu Yan at this news. Having experienced the brutal reality of harvest farm labor firsthand, he truly understood how harsh rural life could be and desperately wished to return home. However, thoughts of Jiang Runan quickly made him hesitate. Mother, what about Runan? Can you and father find a way to bring her back too? Gu Yan's mother cut him off sharply before he could finish his sentence. That is completely impossible. Do you think returning to the city is an easy feat for sent-down youth? If it were simple, countless other educated youth would have gone home long ago. Your father and brother still hold official government positions, and even with their influence, arranging your transfer has proven incredibly challenging. Her parents have been officially demoted and sent to labor re-education camps. Her chances of being recalled to the capital are virtually non-existent. Panic flared within Gu Yan. Mother, please find some solution. How can Runan possibly survive alone out here in the countryside? I'm willing to stay in the countryside permanently if it means you can arrange for her return. You are being utterly foolish. What does Jiang Runan have that makes you sacrifice yourself for her? There are countless far more suitable young women out there for you. Why cannot you see reason? His mother's distress over her son's irrational loyalty made her chest ache with frustration. Runan is irreplaceable to me, mother. No matter how his mother criticized Jiang Runan's flaws, Gu Yan persisted in defending her. Seeing her son thoroughly captivated by the young woman, Gu Yan's mother finally relented and revealed the truth. Since you refuse to listen to any sense, I will tell you everything your father has uncovered through official investigations. Jiang Runan's parents were not wrongfully accused and sent down to the countryside. Over the years, they embezzled public funds, accepted bribes, and were even implicated in fatal incidents that led to formal public reports against them. The only reason our family escaped being implicated in their crimes is due to your grandfather and father's long-standing government merits, alongside your elder brother's military service. Being sent to labor re-education was a lenient punishment for the Jiang family. They have no hope of returning to the capital unless national policies undergo major revisions in the future. Gu Yan was stunned into silence upon learning the real reason behind the Jiang family's demotion, unable to utter a single word for a long moment. His mother continued speaking as he remained frozen in shock. Stop concerning yourself with the Jiang family's troubles. Persist through your time in the countryside for now. If transferring you back proves too difficult, your father can arrange for you to enlist in your elder brother's military unit. Gu Yan could not recall how he ended the phone call. He wandered away from the post office in a daze, his mind overwhelmed with the revelations his mother had shared. Meanwhile, Jiang Runan had just exited the supply and marketing cooperative when she spotted Xia Li standing a short distance away speaking with an unfamiliar man. A spark of joy lit up her face. The busy harvest weeks had left her with no chance to approach Xia Li. She paused at the cooperative entrance to tidy her hair and straighten her clothes, ready to walk over and stage a chance encounter with him. Just as she was about to step forward, a young woman with braided hair wearing a fashionable one-piece dress walked up to Xia Li. The girl wore a bright smile as she conversed with him. The sight made Jiang Runan clench her sleeves tightly in anger. Without a second thought, she rushed forward and forcefully pulled the young woman standing beside Xia Li away from him. The young woman was caught off guard by the sudden tug and nearly lost her balance. The man sitting across from Xia Li reached out to steady her before she could tumble to the ground. Annoyed by the abrupt pull, the girl fixed an irritated gaze on Jiang Runan. Who are you? Why did you grab me? I should be asking you that. What business do you have getting so close to Xiaoli? Jiang Runan shot back. The girl was named Su Jiaojiao, and the man beside her was her elder brother Su Yuanli. He had been Xiaoli's childhood friend since they were small. The siblings had come to town to visit their aunt and had run into Xiaoli by chance, stopping for a quick chat. Su Jiaojiao had harbored a crush on Xiaoli for years and was overjoyed to bump into him. Barely had they started talking when this unfamiliar woman suddenly dragged her away. Irritated by the interruption, she had tried to keep her temper in check as she questioned the stranger's motives, only to be confronted with accusations about her relationship with Xiaoli. A jolt of unease shot through Su Jiaojiao's mind. Could this woman be Xiaoli's lover or someone with feelings for him? She stole a glance at Xiaoli and noticed his brows were tightly furrowed. "And who exactly are you?" Su Jiaojiao demanded. Jiang Runan had not expected the girl to fire a question right back at her. She darted a look towards Xiaoli before speaking sharply to Su Jiaojiao. "That's none of your concern. Just stay away from Xiaoli from now on." Xiaoli's expression darkened further upon hearing her words. He stared coldly at Jiang Runan, his tone frigid with displeasure. "Comrade Jiang, there is no connection between us whatsoever. I do not need your permission to speak with anyone." Relief washed over Su Jiaojiao at Xiaoli's blunt rejection. She smiled smugly at the woman who had been so aggressive moments earlier. Jiang Runan's face paled visibly the second those words left Xiaoli's mouth. She turned to him, opening her mouth yet unable to voice a single coherent sentence. "Xiaoli, she trailed off helplessly. She held no legitimate right to demand other women keep their distance from him. They were nothing more than fellow educated youth residing in the same village quarters. The whole scuffle had been witnessed by Guyan, who was walking back from the post office. Guyan had just learned the real reason behind his parents' demotion and relocation to the countryside, a predicament that likely meant they would never be permitted to return to the city. His mind was tangled with messy, turbulent thoughts. Seeing Jiang Runan openly quarrel with another girl out of possessiveness towards Xiaoli left him overwhelmed with conflicting emotions. His mother's earlier words echoed relentlessly in his head. "Jiang Runan does not have feelings for you." The scene unfolding before his eyes drove home the bitter truth. Jiang Runan's heart had never belonged to him. The light faded little by little from Guyan's eyes. Just then, Jiang Runan spotted Guyan standing not far away. She hurried over and grabbed his arm. "Guyan, they're picking on me." In the past, Guyan would have immediately stepped up to defend her without hesitation. This time, however, his features were impassive as he gently pulled his wrist free from her grasp. "I saw everything clearly. You were the one who initiated physical contact with that young lady." Stunned by his cold demeanor, Jiang Runan rushed to explain herself. "I didn't mean it." She was deliberately crowding up to Xiaoli. She clamped a hand over her mouth the instant the words slipped out, scrambling to remedy her slip. "Up. Guyan, that's not what I meant. Guyan lifted a hand to cut her off. "Say no more. Let us head back to the village." With that, he turned and walked away without another word. Jiang Runan glanced back at Xiaoli and the siblings, then stared at Guyan's retreating figure. After a moment of hesitation, she hurried after him. Watching Jiang Runan leave in disgrace, Su Jiaojiao's mood lifted completely. It was clear that Xiaoli had no ties to that arrogant woman. She turned to Xiaoli with a bright smile. "Brother Xia, who was that person just now?" Xiaoli's eyes turned somber. He stared at her in silence, refusing to reply. Su Jiaojiao shrank back nervously under his icy stare, though she quickly composed herself. Having grown up tagging along behind her brother and Xiaoli, she was well acquainted with his reserved, taciturn nature and had long grown used to his quiet disposition. Seeing his sister meet with a cold reception, Su Yuanli sighed and spoke up. "We ought to take our leave now, old friend. We won't keep you any longer." Xiaoli gave a faint nod. Before Su Jiaojiao could speak another word, her brother tugged her away. Once the onlookers dispersed, Xiaoli walked toward the ox cart parked at the village entrance. Several villagers had already boarded the vehicle, with Ning Qinghe and Su Yan seated quietly waiting for him. Shortly afterward, Guyan and Jiang Runan climbed onto the cart as well. A thick, awkward tension hung between the two of them. Guyan had completely dropped his usual attentive care toward Jiang Runan, treating her with unwavering cold detachment. For her part, Jiang Runan stayed quiet, no longer stirring up petty trouble as she usually did. 2 more villagers boarded until the cart was full. Old man Zhang flicked the reins, guiding the ox cart slowly forward toward Tianjin Production Brigade. As they trundled along the bumpy road, Aunt Wu stroked the newly bought floral cloth in her hands repeatedly, her face brimming with fondness. Beside her, Aunt Taiju spoke up. "Did you buy that printed cloth for your daughter, Nyonyo?" Aunt Wu nodded happily. "Indeed I did. Our Nyonyo has made us proud. She landed a temporary position at Hongxing Iron and Steel Works in town. It is only temporary work, but at last she qualifies for state-supplied urban grain rations." Aunt Taiju hastened to heap on praise. "Now that is quite an achievement. Countless people fight tooth and nail for a spot in that steel mill. Your daughter is truly capable." Aunt Wu preened with undisguised pride at the compliment. "Of course she is. Nyonyo was always a diligent student, lovely-looking and sharp-witted. There's no other girl for miles around half as outstanding as her." Though Aunt Taiju echoed her praise out loud, she harbored private skepticism. Everyone in the village knew Nyonyo had always been lazy and unwilling to work hard. No one could fathom how she had gotten into the steel mill, and many doubted the legitimacy of the job altogether. Right at that moment, Ning Qinghe heard the crisp notification tone of her system ring inside her mind. Ding! Host has triggered a reward, 3 universal work permits plus 10 feet of assorted fabric. A faint smirk tugged at Ning Qinghe's lips as she listened to the two women's conversation. She leaned towards Su Yan sitting beside her. Yan, let me rest my head on your shoulder for a while." Su Yan straightened her shoulders and patted her upper arm reassuringly. "Go ahead and rest. I'll keep watch and wake you if anything happens." Ning Qinghe nodded and leaned her head against Su Yan's shoulder. The ox cart jolted unsteadily along the rough track, lulling even Su Yan into a drowsy stupor. Though Ning Qinghe appeared to be dozing, her consciousness slipped into her personal storage space. 3 brand new universal work permits had appeared within the space, prompting her to query the system. "System, what functions do these work permits have?" The system responded promptly. "Universal work permits allow the host to fill in any factory name and job position. Once filled out, the host will obtain a genuine formal post matching the details in the real world. All employment records are fully legitimate and compliant with the social regulations of this era." Ning Qinghe's eyes lit up with excitement. She had never anticipated such a valuable feature from the system. Secure employment was a coveted opportunity that countless people struggled desperately to obtain in this period. With 3 universal work permits in her possession, she could secure 3 formal jobs for herself. Ning Qinghe began sorting through her plans thoughtfully. Previously in Shanghai, she had traded surplus supplies from her storage space to a man named Dao Go in exchange for cash, gold bars, and antique artifacts. While she still had leftover stock in her storage, she could not afford to rely on those resources indefinitely. Several years remained before the National College entrance exam was reinstated in 1977 and economic reforms rolled out in the 1980s. She could not depend on erratic system rewards to sustain her livelihood over those years. A steady job with fixed monthly income would grant her true peace of mind. She tallied up all her current assets, the cash, gold bars and antiques obtained from Daogo, silver currency, jewelry, and various ration tickets seized from Sun Hongmei's home, plus a bank book holding 5,000 yuan in savings. Thinking of the bank book, Ning Qinghe resolved to find an excuse to withdraw the funds at the county bank sometime soon. Her family had been robbed back in Shanghai, and the city had been under tight security surveillance at the time. Making a large withdrawal right away would have drawn unwanted suspicion, so she had left the money untouched until now. Having since left Shanghai to settle in the rural parts of Heilongjiang province, she no longer faced that risk. She was only uncertain whether a Shanghai-issued bank book could be cashed at a local county bank branch. If interregional withdrawals were unavailable, she would plan a trip back to Shanghai under the pretense of visiting family to retrieve the money in person. 5,000 yuan was an astronomical sum of money in this period. Just as Su Yan was on the verge of falling asleep entirely, the ox cart finally rumbled into the village entrance. Whoa! Old man Zhang brought the ox to a halt. All passengers climbed down from the cart and headed back to their respective homes. Gu Yan walked forward in unbroken silence, with Jiang Runan trailing quietly behind him without uttering a word. Staring at their retreating backs, Su Yan turned to Ning Qinghe in confusion. "Qinghe, what happened between those two? They've been acting strangely ever since we boarded the cart." Gu Yan looks furious with Jiang Runan.